trying to hold it really still this time.
And live.
I'm trying to get way better at holding this sign up.
I think you're doing just fine.
Welcome to the Wes Smith Variety ShYo. I want it to really look like it's stuck on the wall back there, but it's not.
Yes. I thought it was on the screen.
I thought that was a graphic.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you, man, everybody just, it's all the trickery. The world is full of trickery, huh? Well, NYC Bass Collective, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
I may have more. Maybe there's more. Do we have Beat Kitty as well? I heard.
Beat Kitty, unfortunately, was held up.
That's the second time I think that's happened to her with this show.
Yeah, she was just a little bit late last time because she had to work, but yeah, she ended up on it a little bit later than we were, and then there were like maybe an hour.
All right.
She doesn't have the most understanding boss, unfortunately.
See that?
Yeah. Well, so right away, I guess real quick, this changes every time. So NYC Bass Collective is a lot of things, but today on here chatting, Anthony, Ashlyn, right? Is that who's here?
Yes.
Agent 137 in the middle.
Yeah.
That feels so little.
And we got kids around here somewhere.
We got Maddox.
Yo, Maddox, where you at?
Maddox. No.
I had to go. I'm glad y'all were a little late because I was a little late because I had to go and we don't. I'm gonna start a new thing. I'm gonna fake it like we have sponsors. So today the podcast is sponsored by Remington.
What is it?
They'll probably take us off the air for. No, they won't do that. Maybe they'll send me some free razors. But check this thing out. This is like you ever seen a razor with a curved blade?
No, but that's pretty smart.
I mean, ladies, I don't know.
No.
No,
I do hair. I mean,
oh my God. Anyway, that is what I cut my hair with, and I suppose you could probably do it just as easy like a barber with a straight edge shaver as well, or a cutter as well. But for some reason, this made me want to start cutting my own hair. So I'm officially nerding out and saying today's is sponsored by Remington with that curve razor.
Yeah.
Look into that.
Well,
So find me, people, and we also
We're sponsored by Salsa.
Sosa. Sorry.
sponsored by Salsa.
and Armory Podcast, it looks like.
We are. Well, so usually we end up a long way away from whatever it is everyone thinks we're going to talk about on here.
Okay.
Most of the time for the better. So we do try to take a few minutes here in the beginning to, let anybody mention anything they've got coming up. So, hey, Anthony and Ashlyn, I don't know if you have anything coming up that you're part of that you want to let the world know about, then by all means, go for it.
She has a TV show on YouTube.
Well, I haven't done any recording lately with it, but it's called EDM News TV, and it's basically a news show where we share all the latest news and gossip stuff in the EDM.
Wait, wasn't Wes Smith on that show?
What? Oh my God, he was!
Oh my gosh! Yes, that's right. I'm sorry I brought down your viewership that week.
That was awesome. That was probably the coolest interview we've ever done.
Smoking in the boys' room episode.
Yeah, you can't tell from the video, but it was actually recorded in a bathroom, in the handicap bathroom.
So where they?
I was on the toilet, and then me and Wes were up against this wall with a bunch of graffiti and stickers and stuff. So it was a cool backdrop, but
it looks cool. I in fact used the thumbnail from somewhere in that 5 or 10 minutes on one of I used it on something, I don't know, SoundCloud set or something. It's in there somewhere. But so where do people go find that? What was it? How do they find it? Where?
It's called EDM News TV. So it's edmnews.tv, I believe is the website, but then you can search that on YouTube, Facebook. Don't think we have a Twitter or Instagram. It's a pretty new project. It's only like a couple people. So
all right.
I'll just Facebook search for EDM News TV and that'll pop up.
Nice. Do you have, Ashlyn, have you got your microphone thing sorted out now with the little square thing on it?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. You gotta ask Constantine. I think we still have the paper on there.
Right. Oh yes, big shout out to Constantine. He's holding the camera end of the show when we did that.
Yeah, he's the producer.
Awesome. Anthony, what about you, man? Anything going on that you want to, throw out really quick?
Quite a bit. So we have a new record coming out on the Bass Collective with me and B Kitty. We have TT the artist rapping on it.
Ah.
Shooting a music video July 25th and 26th at The Key.
Oh, nice.
Where we went and had a drink, actually, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, cool. That's a neat flip.
Whole seance, and we get possessed by demons, and there's a dance choreograph thing with a bunch of girls.
That's a perfect place
like,
to do it, yeah.
Twerking, I guess? I don't know. This is what I'm being told. And everything glows in the dark. So, yeah, so we got that. And then Ariana Castelli just agreed to put her latest single / remix by Huda Hootie on the Kaleidoscope.
Cool.
So we're joining the Kaleidoscope family there, and we're shooting a music video for that.
Cool.
Ariana Castelli in Long Island somewhere. And then I've got a record coming out on Kaleidoscope as well.
Do we still say record, Anthony? Do we still say record?
I do just I'm old. I'm 44 years old. Like, it's a record.
It's a record. It's a record.
Right? But yeah, on Huda Hootie's label Kaleidoscope.
Very nice.
And then I just wrapped up a remix for Atlantic Records for a really, really big alternative metal band.
Drum and bass!
And I did a drum and bass record for them.
That's so good.
And it came out pretty fucking awesome, so I'm like, damn, I made a drum and bass record. That's what's up. And homegirl over here was my consultant.
He called me.
I'm like, send me the best drum and bass records you got out.
That's how you gotta do it. You gotta have agents everywhere, dude, to help you figure things out.
I had my own agent, like, go out there and do her thing and send me some, and it actually influenced their whole record. And we just got an email back from Atlantic Records. They were like, yo, this is fucking dope.
It is good. Yeah,
so I'm basically, and it just gave me an opportunity to fuse my rock and roll background with, drum and bass and breaks being where it started for me in 19.
Oh, we're gonna dig deep, Anthony.
Yeah. So
I even plugged in the Mac today to make sure that we have time. Usually it runs out, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go take care of the dogs or something like that.
So yeah, man, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think that takes us into the winter, and then probably come back with some parties later on this year. But that's between now and then.
I got one other thing, which actually
you got
the Eve party that we just booked.
Oh, she has an Eve party.
Yeah, so this is actually being announced tomorrow, but I'll just say
we gotta get you on that party.
Oh, it sounds to me like it's being announced right now.
Yes. Well, yeah. So yeah. Anyways, me and my friends Damask are throwing an all-women's DJ party called Eve. So the first one is going to be September 6th. It's a place called the Black Lodge, right? The Black Lodge in Soho. And for the first series, we have Bad Ginger, Kristen Lush, Wendy Escobar, and a girl named Charmaine. So we got those three. Well, the two, Kristen Lush and Wendy, kind of are pretty involved with the Bass Collective. So it's pretty cool to see them on that lineup. So we're hoping for a great kickoff party, and we're gonna hope to do it every month, and then we'll do big quarterly events if all goes well. So expect to see those girls at our party.
We just had yeah, that's great. We just had I'm looking for more ladies that are DJs in San Diego. We just did our second Juice Day Out party, daytime party on Sunday. It went great, and that was and we had like the two main guests were Genevieve and Red Sonja. They're DJs from here in Southern California. Anyway, it was awesome. Everybody loved it. Got a lot of support, and we got a lot of support for the first one too, where there was all dudes. But it was definitely a different dynamic. We have more support this time. That's all I'm saying. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Those are the facts. You can call it what you will. But anyway, I'm just looking for more was my point. I'm looking for more that I can go out and listen to in San Diego, because I like to try to listen to everybody, kind of in the wild, if you will, and then make the lineup, get it right, that kind of thing. So yeah, cool. All right, Kelly, your turn.
What do I have next? I know on Monday I have Fault Line Sessions 007 for Eric Grigsby coming out, and after that is Burning Man. I'm racking up Burning Man. I've got 4 things to do so far. So
Burning Man. Hey, I just went to my first Burn festival.
Yeah.
Oh,
I played it actually.
Where?
PAX.
You went to PAX.
I went and played at PAX. I played for the Hacienda crew there.
Yeah.
B Kitty was kind enough to book me for that. And my girlfriend Leanne, which you guys all know, like introduced me to that whole world. What's up, babe? And we met Wes. I met my girlfriend at the Gay Montour show.
That was the night that we interviewed him, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, thanks for that.
Good night.
So yeah, I went to my first burn thing, and everybody keeps telling me how like PAX is the perfect thing to experience before the burn, because it's the smaller burn.
Yeah, you should.
Even a burn. I mean, I slept through the burn. That was really tired.
Well, don't worry. It's highly likely that'll happen even if you go to burn.
We didn't.
No, we threw down really hard the first 2 nights, and then there was like the burn.
Yeah.
8 of us were like asleep in the cabin. It was hilarious.
So you got amateur hour out of the way at the regional burn, and
yeah, it was fun. But now everybody's like, you got to go to Burning Man. I'm like, next year. I'm going next year. I can't do it.
I'll go eventually, but it's. Have you been before? Okay. Yeah, I would definitely only go with people who've been before.
Well, you got to go with
what
camp
they're doing.
too. Like,
well, yeah.
bullshit.
And I'm just like, I feel so unprepared. But like, that's the cool thing about Burning Man. Like, kids go there, older people go there. You know, so I have time. You have time.
Well, we'll start planning now for next year.
Yeah.
Everybody goes, Ashlyn, even the super old people.
I know, so I have time. I can grow lady.
Yeah, I think about it.
I didn't know that.
Let's see.
For a commercial break.
No, well, it's good. I'm glad I got to hear about all your things because, and then my thing fits in between there and doesn't overlap with any of them. So it's great. So I have, let's see, a couple things coming up. I have, well, I managed to find this shirt. So this is an Armory podcast. I don't know if it's the current one or not, but it's the one I have, and so I'm wearing it because I have one coming out on it on Friday. Yeah. And I'm stoked for that. And Zach Moore there who runs it, nice guy. And so this is my 3rd time doing that. And this time, what'll be different is so simultaneously on the 20, I'm gonna get the date wrong. Like sometime later after today, my next album is coming out, and it's called Magic Carpet Ride. And summertime, and it's got some funk in it. It's got a wide variety of genres in it. I'll leave all that for when we start promoting it. But the point with the Armory mix, the thing I'm doing differently with this one, because I was like, it's the 3rd one, so I need to do something different. So I kind of timed it all so that the whole album is mixed into all of the mix that's going to be on the Armory mix, and to take it up a notch, every track that's on the entire mix, which is like 26 or something, is all my tracks. So a couple of remixes I did for other people that haven't come out yet. So that is what's coming up for any of my peoples out there that are interested in music from me. So check it out on Friday, and we'll blast it out.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's if not the best podcast out there. I mean, I don't listen to it. I don't have the attention span for it, but I definitely get a lot of inspiration from those guys.
Yeah, it's a great one. And so the artwork for that, I didn't print a nice one out like the ones of this release that came out previously a while ago. But anyway, the artwork for it, dang, I'm surprised I don't have a picture of it to show. Anyway, is from my buddy Sumo Fish there in the Bay Area. So he's awesome. Check him out. Sells T-shirts, really cool stuff. Oh, like things like this. Anyone who's ever talked to me for 10 minutes or more has seen something that's got these kinds of designs on it. That's his like logo. So if you go looking for him, you'll find him. Nice. I think you can see it from Sumo Fish. Anyway, awesome guy, Brant, and great artist. And so that's the artwork for that. So that'll start dropping on Friday and over the next few weeks, and it comes out in a few weeks. So that's awesome. So, and the last thing I have, which is more on the DJ front, is Electric Love Festival in Canada. Very excited coming up, and that will it's a massive lineup. But myself and DJ ShYo, who you guys met briefly, and then of course Anthony, you knew her already in New York.
She finally did that box I mailed out.
Yeah. So myself, DJ ShYo, and Ground Score, who's a kid from Vancouver area. So that festival's up in Vancouver area. So we're all doing the first. They've got us doing a Juice Night Out session there, kind of the opposite of our Juice Day Out parties we've been doing in San Diego. And so really excited about that coming up. I'll let you know how it goes. That's it.
That sounds awesome.
Show's over.
All right. Thanks for having us.
we just wanted some variety this time. We're just going to get on, talk about ourselves for 5 minutes each, and then call it a day.
Shameless self-promotion.
Hey, right?
Can you give me some ice?
Oh, you've come to the right place, my friend, for shameless self-promotion. You have definitely come to the right place.
He's not telling us this is really just audio with a picture of him on it.
That's right. That's right. That's it. It's all spray painted in. Well, hey, Ashlyn, since I've been stalking, since they were out having tacos, maybe you were with them. I didn't know that you were with them, but so I'm over stalking your Facebook page, and I wanted to ask you, like, a few things came to mind. What's up with Webster Hall? I mean, obviously you both probably know.
Webster's out. Webster is pretty much gone as we know it. So it was announced a couple months ago that they were being bought out by AEG Live, which is a huge agency, a huge firm, and then Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment, which is who owns the Barclays Center.
Okay.
Two companies are coming in. They're doing a $10 million renovation. They're just, we really don't know what they're going to do, honestly. I mean, with $10 million, you can do a lot. Hopefully they'll keep the structure of Webster Hall, but who knows?
Well, they have to.
They have to keep some, it's a landmark, right? So they have to keep the structure of it, but I think the whole aesthetic, like the whole grunge aesthetic is just going to be gone. Who knows what's going to happen in the parties? It could be a concert hall. Like right now, they stay up until 4 a.m., 5 a.m. sometimes. If it's going to be a concert hall now, they're going to probably be done by like 2. So their last operating day is August 5th.
Okay.
4 weeks away. So there's only 12 more club nights. So they do Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are considered club nights. But yeah, everyone's just, we knew about the news, we just didn't know like when it was going to really set in, but they announced late last week that it was August 5th is their last operating day, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I went there a lot when I lived there in New York, but I definitely had a good time. Every time I went, I remember having a good time. It was a good
the general consensus is that you always have a good time at Webster. I mean, I've made tons of friends, family there. It's my go-to, like, Basement Saturdays is my go-to. Like, I can just pretty much walk up there and walk in.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not gonna happen.
So it's getting taken, or it's been bought or whatever. The lease has been bought, whatever.
$10 million.
I mean, New York in general, I think the landscape of Manhattan's dance scene or music scene in general, it happened to rock and roll when the Lower East Side got renovated, but like,
yeah.
You know, I think it's just, it happens, right? Wes, we've been around long enough to see things kind of evolve. You know, the sad part about Webster, I think, is a lot of us DJs that were locals have these really glorious moments. I mean, Basement, you know, I played there when it kind of first started and watched that whole party evolve with Subset kind of taking it to the next level.
You were a resident there for...
And then I played with Girls and Boys for a few years. You know, Alex English brought me on. And, you know, it was the one place you got to be a local, and yet you played with Skrillex, or you played with Data Life, or I played with Bingo Players, or I played with RJD2.
Yeah.
You know, Girls and Boys was that thing, and I just posted something the other day thanking, you know, Kenny and Alex and all the people you play with there, because when I look back, and Facebook does this, you know, those memories it sends out, right, every day. And lately it's been throwing all these memories, the day I played with Data Life, and the day I did this, and the day I went to this, and, you know, you look back on the history of the parties and this venue, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if there's another party in another venue that allows locals to have such a big platform.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in New York. Even if you play the other venues, you don't get to play on this massive stage, on this massive sound system, and get on the billboard. And, you know, so it's sad to see that go, but I'm kind of excited to see what's next.
Yeah, and it's if I remember right, what is it on 10th?
It's on 11th between
11th.
second and
third.
Yeah. Because I used to work. Oh, hold on, just 1 second.
Wait, somebody's at the door. Mom, leave me alone. I'm in.
Massive, trying to creep in.
Wait, I'm gonna go get some mics. I'll be right back.
Are we live?
Are we live right now?
Are we live?
Put it in a bowl and bring it out here.
It's the UPS. It was the UPS dude. He was bringing me my new glow sticks.
Ooh.
I was gonna say, are you getting Burning Man stuff?
Oh, are you going to us?
Oh yeah. Well, now I'll say, oh yeah, as if I was planning on it like since I was born.
He goes every year. He's on the 30-year plan.
I'm
the mayor of Burning Man, I heard.
I'm a lifer. You see, when Kelly and I went, I think we both went. Kelly, did we both go the first time, our first year?
We both went at the first year. We both went, but we didn't.
Yeah, different camps.
We saw each other one time.
Yeah, and then the second time, I think it was the second time we went though, for both of us.
Together.
Kelly stayed with Camp Charlie, which was the camp I was with the first year, and I think that was the year where we had a lot of fun and we cruised around because we weren't like all in fucking panic mode from like all the craziness that it is when it's your first time, sensory overload. And so we both explored a good bit, some of it together. And we went somewhere, Kelly, and you run into some characters that are like 100 years old that have been going to Burning Man since like for 3 lifetimes. Yep. And someone was like sitting there and told us like, they were like, oh, well, you just have to make a choice. You just commit for Burning Man for life or you don't come back. It was something to that effect, and Kelly and I were both, so that's always been our joke is like Burning Man for life. Can't change it.
Louise wants to say hello.
Where's the other kid?
Hello, what's up? We also, like, at one night, we were just, like, cruising around the first night on our bicycles, and we ended up at a punk bar. Remember? We were at a punk bar drinking Jameson at the punk bar.
On the wrong side of the plot.
Yeah.
I just want to go to see this, like, city that they built. Like, This is so interesting.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, people, right? They just want to go, but I was schooled on this the other day. You got to pick. You got to either go for the build or you got to stick around for the breakdown, right?
Do the whole thing.
I think that's a part of the experience is being a part of that.
It is, but I know people have only gone like a few days.
Because you could go going for like the whole month of August. I've
only been 3 times. This will be my 4th. So I am by no means like a long time. I don't know what it was like back in the day. But I will say this. If you can, my recommendation to anybody is if you can get the time, go for as much as you can be involved in terms of the length of days, if you can get the time. And I say it that way because you can experience all these phases of it, and you don't have to and in fact, you just shouldn't plan on going bananas every day with whatever form of party is your form of party because you can't make it. Like it's that intense. So, and I think that's something I think that most, veterans, which I don't consider myself, but I think they will tell you that is like, oh, they'll be like, oh, my first year, I did this every day, twice, night, day. I was up for 6 days straight. And then by my 4th year, I was like, okay, every 3rd day I'm going to do this. Every 2nd day, I'm just going to hang out in a tent and drink water. And then every 3rd day, I'm going to go hang out in some pile of bean bags or whatever,
With Jameson.
I hope so. Yes. Hey, I had my first pickleback at Burning Man. That was kind of interesting. Hey, but back to the New York City club thing. So that is okay. So what do you call it? Webster Hall is not quite Lower East Side. It's kind of like East Village-ish, I guess, right? Yeah. And
East
so
area, kind of.
Yeah. So the closest I ever lived to there was at 12th and C, which is not far away. That's kind of the time when I would have gone there more. And then I moved further down Lower East Side. But there's a couple places down Lower East Side. I'm curious if they're still there. They weren't necessarily. They certainly weren't Webster Hall style, but they were larger. There was one down in like Bowery and maybe Bowery and Rivington, somewhere down there. Is there still a decent sized spot there or no?
The Bowery Ballroom.
Bowery Ballroom.
Well, that's definitely there. But there was another one. But is Bowery Ballroom still there?
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah, so they focus more on live music, so they've always kind of stayed true to that.
Live music, right?
Yeah, I mean anything. You know, we had Flash Factory for a little while. That came and went. Right, that's gone.
Oh, I think it's still there.
Or it's about to close. Or
Flash Factory is over on the west side, like in the almost Midtown. I want to say, like up there. I think it's still there, but you're right. I haven't seen a lot of.
I think they're closing down. I read something there, but honestly, the dance world and the club scene moved to Brooklyn.
Yeah. So I was gonna. So I was kind of trying to pick it out, but I mean, you tell me. But it sounds like Bowery. I mean, it sounds like Webster Hall is probably the furthest, like legitimate and certainly electronic music dance club, the furthest south on Manhattan, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Kind of drops off after that. Well, it'd be interesting to see what they do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm intrigued, but I'm a little. I mean, everyone's really sad just because right now it's family owned, and I feel like because of that, it's given it like a family vibe. Like everyone that goes in there, it's just a lot of people go there every single weekend, and residents, and everyone knows everyone.
And you can like not go.
Yeah,
you can like not go for 6 months
and then come back.
I predict two things are going to happen. It'll be more difficult to get in, and drink prices will go up.
Yep, that's exactly.
That's my prediction.
All those drink tickets we have over there, we've been holding on to, are not going to be usable anymore.
Well, let's go.
We should go. We should go.
I want to get our own stamp and stamp the date on it.
I think I went there 20 years ago on my first trip to New York City. It was 20 years ago. Like that was where we went.
Well, it's been there since 1800 and something.
It's a bit, yeah. It hasn't been. It's only been owned by the Ballingers for I think 19 years, 1920 around there.
Yeah. Okay, so that was.
But it's still been like.
I was
like iconic Webster Hall.
I mean, besides playing there, I think the coolest moment I ever had was in the office with Kenny having a meeting, and he's like, "You got to see this," and he pulls up all these pictures of Webster Hall he got from the 18 and early 1900s.
Oh, wow.
You know that at Webster Hall, Elvis Presley recorded one of his albums in the main ballroom. And there was a moment where they turned, because it was like kind of like a burlesque, big ballroom venue for the beginning of its inception, and then he got bought out, and it became a recording studio for orchestras.
Wow.
Elvis went there and recorded an album. They recorded a lot of big albums there. The main ballroom was the recording room, and they had two little areas where all the recording equipment was, the engineers. So he showed me all these pictures, and it's one of the pictures that kills me. It's the exact same front. There's a old Ford truck driving by, and everybody's wearing hats and top hats and suit jackets, and the women are all dolled up with umbrellas, and the street was a dirt.
Yeah.
That's how
old.
Oh
my gosh.
And how much of a landmark that place really
That's
is.
When I lived in New York, for me, everywhere I've lived has been really enjoyable in different ways. But when I lived in New York, that was definitely one of the funny things was like here in San Diego, like you could be somewhere and it's like a great nightlife spot, right? And it might have a 10-year history. And maybe there was a place there before that. But you're not going to go back to like 1920 and it was still a place like at that time. Or something weird like that, right? And that's definitely one of those unique things about a city like New York is like you can keep digging and digging the layers of the onion back and find some of the weird. There's going to be like in many cases there'll be 100 years of history. With it might have gone from a textile factory to a nightclub and then to a electronics place or whatever, but it generally like all those areas. It's just been buzzing for 100 years, right? So it's not like. Maybe the skyscrapers and stuff don't go that far back, but the 80-story ones. But it's been dense for a very long time. So
Palladium, I think Palladium became New York NYU dorms.
It did, yeah.
One factory became the tunnel became something else, and New York.
Ashlyn, do you remember Palladium?
Of course, I remember Palladium.
No, I asked Ashlyn if she did.
Oh no.
It's the first time she's actually ever heard of the Palladium.
No, I did.
I've only lived in New York for 7 years, so.
And she's
Anything before that.
and she's not even 40. So
You'd have to be like 46 years old or 49 years old or something to remember.
I'm 44.
That's what I'm saying. You'd have to be, yeah. You'd have to be tipping the midlife scales to remember that spot.
Well, that's me. So.
But Anthony, yeah. On that note,
hold on. Before you go any farther, there is a piece of history that Ashlyn is attached to right now.
What?
So the Limelight, where was another place where I was introduced to extracurricular activities and lasers and
looping.
So I used to go to the Limelight way back in the day, and now the other day I had to pick up a pair of boots on my way to PEX from her job, and her job is inside the Limelight. There's a spins class.
Yeah, Spin Studio. Yeah.
So
It's a special
no, but it looks like a club. I walk into her work, and it looks like a dark, dingy nightclub. I'm like, holy shit, the Limelight is a spin place, dude. It's called Monster?
It's called Monster Cycle. So, yeah. So it's all black when you walk in. There's like upside down crosses and
it's fucking crazy
neon lights,
looking.
and then there's a huge mural of all the like horror movie villains and stuff. Like so it kind of fits.
It
what it used to be, but also very opposite of what you're
So that's what the Limelight is, Wes. It's a spin.
That's crazy. Well, what was the big thing? So Anthony, what was there was like a catch thing to the Palladium. They had like, you know, it was kind of like almost like at the time it was like a modern effort at Soul Train almost, right? What they had like what was the theme of the dance off thing? There was like this thing they had that was part of it. Do you remember?
I do not remember that. I'm not that old.
Dance off.
Yeah, it was like dance. There was some dance competition element to it all the time. There was like it was this thing. It was like maybe it wasn't formally a dance competition, but if I can remember any of it correct, it was like they had this thing where like the camera angles were super close up. Like they would cruise around the club, and basically it was basically like a club that, you know, like my sister was really into it. She's older than me, so that's how I remember it. And she would watch it, and I just wasn't really interested in it. But I do remember like everyone's dancing, you know, all funky and stuff. But it was really bright, and since I didn't have any clue what a nightclub was supposed to be anyway, it never like occurred to me that was odd.
Right.
But it was like all the lights are on. You're in a nightclub, and they would do these super close-ups on everyone dancing, you know, all the crazy stuff and the hairstyles and whatever. And you know, they'd be up on scaffolding and different things going on. And I was just thought that was really funny.
I feel like the Palladium kind of jumped off the Studio 54 thing. I feel like
that's probably what it was more modeled.
I feel like that was that transition probably when Studio 54 changed over. Disco was dying, and there was the European dance scene came, you know, with techno over here. Yeah, there was definitely this very interesting time in New York City where I don't know that it was anything definable at the moment, you know. But
okay, I have a quick Facebook detour. I can't stop laughing. Ashlyn, is it okay if I read something off your Facebook page?
It's like shiny at you. Okay.
Well, I've never seen this before, so I just thought it was pretty funny. I was scrolling down, and there's like this big white space, and it's a flag, and it says Ashlyn farted in front of Barrett.
What? Wait, what?
And this is why you have to be careful what you post on the internet.
Okay. I did it on purpose.
I mean, on July 6th.
It was like 4 days ago.
Well, that's my.
It's pretty specific.
And it's a fairly new relationship, and I feel like when you fart in front of your significant other, it's like it secures the relationship. It means you're very comfortable in front of them. So that was good luck with that for me. Okay. She did it on purpose.
You've definitely made it. If that's the case, that's awesome.
Kind of secures the relationship, I guess.
So
yeah, right. Yeah. No, because I saw in there, I figured it was kind of something like that because you've got, there were some photos and articles. I guess you guys write some stuff together and whatnot. So that's.
Yeah, we just covered, well, for the first time, we covered a show at Red Rock. So it was actually the Fulton show. So Fulton played with the support of Bauer and Touch Sensitive. So
Nice.
I interviewed Touch Sensitive, and then we covered the show. Like we both did photos. He has a film camera, so he was shooting with film, and I was shooting with my DSLR. Yeah, it was a really cool show. It's at Red Rocks, so it's anything at Red Rocks.
In Denver or outside Denver?
Yeah, it's right outside of Denver. It's called Morrison. It's like 90 miles outside of Denver.
Okay, so you guys actually flew. You were there on location.
Yeah, we were actually there 2 days. So Dead Rocks, which is Zed's Dead, played Monday before 4th of July, and then Wednesday was Flume, Bauer, and Touch Sensitive.
Well, that's really cool.
So we
I didn't know.
that for my the blog that I write for Daily Beat.
Oh yeah, I see that. Okay, so you got that going on too. You do some other stuff there.
Yeah, I've had that going on for like 4 years.
Nah, it's awesome. Where else? What other interesting locations have y'all been able? Did you? Well, first of all, did you and Barrett meet through Daily Beat?
No, we didn't. We met through my friend, but we met at a Bass Nectar show, so Bass Atlantic for my birthday. So we were down there.
Hey, close enough.
Yeah, which I interviewed Il Gates there, and then I shot for this girl named Night Child.
Okay.
Awesome. So I covered that show, yeah.
Il Gates is an interesting dude, huh?
Yeah, he's really cool.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I never met him in person, but I definitely have followed some of his producer-related stuff. He's a real neat, talented guy. Cool. Where else have you gone with the whole Daily Beat thing? Where else has that taken you? Or you're recording?
I've been to Miami a couple times for Miami Music Week. That's actually where me and Anthony met. I was covering my first Miami Music Week in 2013, I think it was.
I knew I would get there eventually without asking.
Yeah, so that's how we first met, through my friend Sarah. She was a photographer, and this was like a last-minute trip for me, which made it that much better because I love spontaneous trips. So I was just like, all right, fuck it, I'll go. And so I ended up down there, and the first night I'm down there, I meet him, and he introduces me to Skrillex the first fucking night I'm in Miami. I was like, I love Miami. Done. I love it.
And she cried like a baby.
Oh, yeah, I cried.
Oh, this is in 2013.
I did. And I don't know, hopefully he didn't see, but I know there's some pictures floating around because my friend Ryan Farber was a photographer, and he was taking pictures, so he definitely has some of me crying somewhere, but it was very great. It's probably the best day of my life to date.
If you've met, Skrillex, he's probably one of the nicest people on the planet.
And that's what makes it just makes it that much easier to like him.
But see, she forgets. That's not how we met.
We met through Sarah, I thought.
Nope. There's a picture floating around the internet of me and her at Webster Hall.
Oh,
She's a blonde.
Oh, yeah. Oh, because that's when you were resident DJ, right?
Yeah, that's when I was playing there, and
but I feel like that was just like when Drunken died. I was like, oh, what's that? I somehow ended up on stage, like, I don't know. And you were resident there at that time. So I guess that is when we first met, but like.
We were both wasted.
Yeah, so like I don't even remember. I went back on the picture, I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh yeah, oh shit.
Well, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole too deep on Ashlyn Skrillex Pictures, but it's pretty comical if you go and Google that one. And ironically, the picture of you and I shows up.
Of me and her?
No, me and Ashlyn doing it. Yeah, if I Google Ashlyn Fulton Skrillex Miami, somehow the picture of me comes up like the like the 5th row.
That's hilarious.
Sorry, Google.
Thanks, Google.
Google's got it. It's totally. There's some shenanigans going on.
Well, just totally, that we're doing this right now, so it's like
Yeah.
It's totally like somehow there's a cookie or something, that it knows me, and it's like, oh, we'll toss in a picture of this guy who's searching with that girl just so that he feels like he's search results with Skrillex.
Yeah, there you go. Because they're listening right now.
Google. Totally.
Google. Okay, Google. Yeah. Okay, Google.
Hey, back to Burning Man real quick. I'm going to show you. Something real quick. This is This is a project I've been working on with them. So I'm going to be out there for 3 weeks. So can y'all see this?
Oh yeah, no big deal. You're just building a 727.
You're building a plane?
Well, it's a 747, and so what they did was these this group out of LA bought this thing, and they've taken it apart. You'll see some pictures in here. Well, you can see this one's all cut out. So there's some pictures that are like more what it looks like now. This is the whole plane, I guess, when they bought it. But I was out there this weekend helping them do some work on it. Yeah, so you can see
lit up, right?
yeah, they're cutting the wing off right there and all this stuff. So this anyway, I won't consume you with that, but I was gonna just share that because it's awesome to have gone out there and worked on it and be part of it. But the whole thing won't, the whole thing won't make it out there like this year. Last year, I think the first piece made it out, or maybe the year before, and then like they're basically bringing it from, because I went up to Mojave Desert to help them work on it. So they're basically that's where it was sitting when it got bought. And so in order to get a 747 up to Black Rock City, which is a little north of Reno, Nevada, about maybe an hour or so, Kelly, something like that, north, right? So they got to get it up near there, so they couldn't bring the whole thing at once. So they basically have to, and you can't move it on the highway, and it doesn't fly. So, and you can't fly into Black Rock City. So that's all the cutting going on. So they're cutting the wings, and then they won't bring the tips out. But it'll be cool. The wings are going to be like dance floors, and then eventually, so like the top front is out there now. I think the top back is coming out this time. That's what we're pulling out. Maybe something else. And then, but eventually that whole front piece, minus the ends of the wings and minus the tail section behind, kind of about 30, 40 feet behind maybe the emergency doors. Eventually that whole thing will be out there with landing gear, and it'll get pulled around Playa like an art car.
Is that the one I've been seeing pictures of that is all lit up with LED lighting now?
Yes. There's only there's only one airplane at all that I can think of that's been, at least in my time. Can you think of one, Kelly? Do you know a different thing, or?
No, I was wondering. So you said it was being pulled, like it's gonna move?
It's gonna be an art car. Yeah.
Oh shit!
Oh, whoa!
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lounge.
That's an art plane, by the way. That's not an art car. That's an art plane.
That's cute.
Right. So right, Kelly. So last time it was basically, it looked like the front end of the plane with a cockpit, and it's like, oh, that's cool, and it's like, oh, that's cool because it's definitely big, and it's like a lot of space inside, and they had like a quasi nightclub, and they did other things like some dinner and speaking and whatever things people do. You could go in the cockpit, right, Kelly? Remember we walked all around it, the piece that was sitting there. Yeah. So they'll have another piece like that long that's part of the top out there. But yeah, eventually the bottom of that whole thing will be out there as well, which includes the landing gear. And then they'll have those sections of the wing. It's about 40 feet out maybe from the doors. And then that'll have railings and all around it. So that's what I was out there helping them do, was build like benches, and yeah, they have to have, all kinds of stairs and stuff to get in and out of it, for safety, and railings around the wings, and so people don't
bring everything out in pieces, because you have to get that down a highway, for 7 to get there. Like they just bring it out in pieces in like a semi.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm gonna see if I can, because I'm not the pro at it. Like I'm becoming more as I've volunteered and helped them with some stuff. Because Kelly, you met Will Mundy, I think. Yeah. Will was part of Camp Charlie. So the guy who originally built Charlie the art car, like way back whenever it started, the guy Ken, he's the one who started this Big Imagination Foundation, who's behind the 747 project. So Will is over this. So anyway, Will invited me to come help just because I'm a handy guy and in the area, and they need volunteers. even if you're not going to camp with them, or even if you're not going to Burning Man, like they need volunteers to just help do stuff. It's a massive project. So anyway, so that's what we were doing. But yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. So I think I'm gonna help them. I think I'm gonna try to help them build the DJ booth. And my thought was, so part of the reason I brought this up was because I'm gonna try to have somebody from the Big Imagination Foundation like do the show sometime, Kelly, and really get like whatever it is they want to talk about. Like in a less formal way than the 3-minute videos that they have, because I don't think they've really been able to do that. And it's really a wild story, I think, that a lot of people would be interested in hearing, including myself, in the pieces that I've heard it. But the other thing is because I was going to run by y'all instead of talking about the 747 the whole time. But so they asked me about thinking about ideas for the DJ booth. So I thought they've got a couple good ideas already, but I thought it'd be pretty cool to take an engine cowling or something, like the big ring that goes around the the engine because it doesn't have any engine. So I thought maybe like a big round. Since you're all like music people and DJ people, you could see if this sounds cool. But you could have it be a big round like the engine cowling, and then like from the bottom, if you could suspend it or support it, like from the bottom, you could have like you would make it fake, like it wouldn't be a real like the fan because that's like 10 million pounds, but you know like what the engine looks like when you look into it and the prop that spins around. Like all the blades, so you could like make that from the underside and maybe like, you know, make it lit and stuff. That'd be pretty cool. And then they had this idea where they wanted to put the DJ booth on a lift so that they could drive it around like when the plane's not moving. They could drive like the DJ booth out of the plane or like just have it follow the plane or something weird. Like there's all kinds of crazy ideas come up when people start thinking and they're partying a little bit and they're real creative types, you know? But I thought at least like having it like a big donut is what it would kind of look like, and it could be on the lift, and it could move up and down a little. And the other thing is it could rotate, right? So you could have it turn around like slowly on a turntable.
Yeah.
What do you think, Anthony?
That would be awesome.
Sounds dope.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Anthony's like, scary, dude. I don't really want to spin around in circles while we're
Spinning blade.
It's kind of hard to do that. I think we're gonna lose one of our participants now, and it's not.
You can go.
Ashlyn?
She has to leave a little
We're
bit.
good. We're good. We're
She
good.
has to leave a
She
little
has to
bit
go
early.
see. She's gonna go see 311, the band.
Oh.
Private show and Q&A kind of thing.
That's awesome. Are you doing? I just went and saw Green Day. It's kind of in the same ballpark, right?
Same era.
I'd way rather see.
What's that?
I would way rather see Green Day, but no, I've seen 311. I saw them a couple years ago, but this is like a media opportunity. They're doing like a private
Awesome.
show and then like a Q&A because they have a new album coming out, or it just came out, Mosaic. It's pretty good.
Oh, okay.
So.
You could big shout out to 311.
Yeah.
You got all the cool stuff going on. Yeah, Green Day concert was incredible, man. I hadn't really listened to a Green Day song on purpose in like a long time, and we got tickets to the show and went and checked it out. That was crazy, man. It's so amazing. You know, Anthony, you got a good rock background, and Ashlyn, obviously you're into it and have interviewed a lot of them. And isn't it amazing? Like when you go, because we're all of us are like we hear a lot of electronic music, right? Like I probably hear more electronic music by way of DJs than I do live music by bands. Is that kind of true for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely come from that, but I was telling somebody the other day, even just the landscape of New York, when I first moved to New York, even though I was DJing, you can go to the Lower East Side and see the Strokes and the Yeah Yeahs playing the bar, you know?
Yeah.
You know, rock and roll is kind of, but I feel like, I don't know, man, I'm hoping that rock and roll and dance music and all this technology comes together in the next, like, 10 years, because something new is coming out. But it is interesting, like, she's going to see 311. My boy, a drummer I used to play with, Frank Zumo, is now the drummer for Sum 41 and Cruella.
Yeah.
So I'm already seeing this merge of people I grew up with in the rock and roll scene working in the dance scene. And
yeah,
I think that if history serves me right, there's always this evolution. Things always come to an end, but then things kind of come together. So I think I'm hopeful that we are going to see live music and dance music come together. Nile Rodgers is a perfect example of that. You know, he's a big pioneer of dance music, but that guy's a great guitar player, and he's working with Daft Punk, and then he's working with Bruno Mars, and he's working. So, yeah, I mean, I think
it's definitely happened or going to happen quick, or has happened at the super high level. But I agree with you. It's really cool to be able to see it come together more, you know, at the the lower or entry level all the way up to the top level, right? It'd be cool to see more of a spectrum of it.
Well,
because what I was going to say about the Green Day show was it had probably been like 3 or 4 years since I had intentionally gone to a live concert, meaning I was paying attention, you know, and it was like I had almost forgotten. In a way, I felt a little bad. I had almost forgotten like how awesome it is,
right.
You know, like what energy and vibe is like when you see. I mean, the crowd is also part of it, and that can be the case with an electronic music show. But there's definitely that different like connection, not just with the crowd, but with those dudes on stage when they're so good, like Green Day. Like it just, even if you don't like their music, I think you could probably kind of feel that these dudes are having a blast, man.
Yeah,
you know, like
dynamic. It's also the dynamic of the instrument, like to hear a guitar come out of an amp and to hear a drummer play the way they do, which is great. Which is great, like 311, Sum 41, and a lot of rock bands are having this resurgence where like, and they have a lot of young kids in the audience. So I think that dance music has this thing, right? It's this energy. It comes from the speakers. It's bass. It's visuals. But that doesn't replace the sound of a stack of Marshalls.
Agreed. Especially not with
my crazy and spinning the fucking sticks up in the air, that showmanship. And the idea that you could, like, Tommy Lee, who I know, and just to see him, like, evolve as this guy, like, as a fan, and watch him go and fly up in the air and turn around in a circle. Fuck you, Steve. You're just throwing cake. Like, this dude, he's fucking be like, well, this and this. He's like, oh, hold on. I'm going to spin around in a circle. I'm going to do a shot of tequila. Yeah, and now, you know, you see these people do these, like, gimmicks. I'm like, no, man, rock and roll had gimmicks. And I think you're going to see this evolution.
Well, like the whole, like, remember when they, like, the whole, like, the dude would run with the cables, like, and fly across the stage, dude. And it was like, doing a split, bro, playing guitar. It was so crazy. Oh. Like, you were like, you know? And now we have to, like,
look at people like Prince and Eddie Van Halen. And, I mean, it goes on. David Lee Roth, The Doors. I mean, you can go as far back, and there was always this energy. And to plug something I'm working on, because there's shameless plugs in the
The tequila's kicking in, folks. The tequila's kicking in.
The one thing that I think I'm most excited of, and look, I've loved DJ culture for 20 years, and I've been a part of it. I've had great moments, low moments, but I've always respected it. But I find myself now as a musician and as a producer and as a DJ at a point where I'm completely bored with what it feels like to continuously try to create this thing all by myself. And when it started, it was never about myself. It was a band. So fast forward, I've decided to move forward for the rest of my career, honestly, because I feel like in some ways this is my final bow as a musician. I'm launching a new band called Beauty and the Machine.
Your final bow? What is this craziness you speak of?
Let me finish. My final bow, my final bow as an actual musician that will go back on stage and play.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll always DJ and produce, but, you know, I've got this itch, so I was fortunate enough to write this concept album. It's 5 songs. The band is called Beauty and the Machine, and from the first song to the 5th song, it tells one story. And we're filming a music video for every story, every song, and when you play all the videos in one sequence, it's a mini movie. It's a short film. And the band is going to be the soundtrack. So it's almost like when they had silent films and you had the guy in the organ. So Beauty and the Machine is a story about a boy and a girl who fall in love. And they go through all of that summer love, that ecstasy of in love, and then it ends. And it ends with heartbreak. But the twist is that it ends in heartbreak because they both find out that they're artificial intelligence. They're not real. And that's a little bit of a comparison to the relationships I've had in my past where things just don't work out and social media's effect on our relationships today. But it's a full band. So we have Jennifer Cella, who's the lead singer from the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. She's toured all over. She's sold out Madison Square Garden. We're bringing in Anton Bass as a producer. And we're really taking the last 25, 30 years of all of our careers, the DJing, the samplers, the drum machines, the drummers, the guitars, the bass player, the keyboard player, the backup singers, and the multimedia show, the visuals, the lighting. We're doing all that and putting it all into one thing and launching it this fall as our rock and roll dance album. You know, and for me is like seeing rock and roll kind of come back. It's like, have you watched the Defiant Ones yet? The new show on HBO with Jimmy Iovine and Dre, and the whole story of where rock and roll and hip hop kind of, you know, people don't realize this, but Dr. Dre and Trent Reznor became famous at the exact same time for a reason. It was a rebellion, right? It was this moment in history where rap and rock and roll had a political message and people were listening. And I think that's what's missing in music for me right now is dance music. I love it. DJs, obviously, come on. I mean, we've had some great careers, but I'm ready for a fucking revolution.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to not. Yeah, I don't think you have to choose, you know, to like or not like one of them. They're different, and I think it's sad when one's missing, especially when it's that live piece, which I do believe there's a different human connection. And those of us that have experienced that, like I was saying about just a Green Day show, I had forgotten or kind of lost touch with that element of my musical, you know, interest. And I think that would be the case for a lot of people that perhaps have never even really been in that side of it. So I hope it does come together. That's awesome.
I know it's gonna come together. We just started recording the album this weekend in Connecticut in this beautiful recording studio in a house. But back to Webster Hall. Yeah. You know, I've had some great memories. One of my favorite memories there was seeing Skrillex become Skrillex. I was fortunate enough to be there the day that I think he became a star. But I was also fortunate enough to be there the day that Metallica literally played a few months ago. Alex English, thank you for this. Hook me up with tickets. And I got to go see Metallica live at Webster Hall in the main ballroom. And they played every single hit. Yeah. And I can tell you, I had a tear in my eye once or twice in the show. Yeah. Because that is what music was to me.
Yeah,
I think that's what dance music is to the youth today, because I've seen that emotion in the audience. But I really hope the next generation gets to experience both, right? The electronic element, I think dance music has brought this almost like live big opera approach to shit. There's lights, there's explosions, there's all this drama. Yeah. But I think the future has to be that these kids have to learn how to use this laptop and a guitar.
Well, the show. I mean, for me, I kind of summed that up with like the production of the show in the EDM landscape, like collectively, has completely overrun the size of any artist in all of EDM. Like the show, just go to EDC. Like you don't even have to go to EDC Vegas. Just go stand outside of EDC Vegas and look at it. And it's like it's very clear that and it's not the first time in history, but as with rock music and other things, you know, that's huge, and it's clearly, It's clearly larger than any artist that's at it, and so it seems like that's probably a cycle of things where it's like once the artists are no longer even or start to become less and less recognized amongst the overall show, it's probably it's probably not too long until there's. It doesn't mean EDC is going to go away. It just means it's probably not too long before a fair amount of people start to look for something else, because you don't really resonate and connect with a brand, Insomniac, right? They do awesome things. You don't love Insomniac. You love being there with your friends and people and seeing artists. And so once that kind of starts to dilute, I think you'll get these transitions. I think that's.
I gotta say, I love Insomniac for one reason. So Pasquale was nice enough to invite me and Kristen Lush this year as his guests, and I got to go experience EDC Vegas. Holy shit!
Well, yeah, I mean,
I've been to a lot of things. I mean, I've seen Iron Maiden, I've seen Motley Crue, I've seen Skrillex, I've seen all these festivals, and I roll into EDC Las Vegas, and my jaw.
Yeah.
Just walking in.
Dropped walking in. And then there was a moment in time where I'm sitting on this VIP stage, and they have this one like VIP area, and you can actually see the whole thing. And it really gave me this level of respect and love for dance music and how far it had come. Yeah. Because man, we started way back, dude, all of us, right? The three of us, and you come in, you know, recently, but like, remember the 90s? Yeah. You know, there'd be a rave in Tampa, Florida with Rather the Moon and us and these guys and Huda Hoodia and Icy. And I thought then, like, yo, this is fucking dope. Yeah. And then I stood at EDC thinking, this has transcended all of that. Like, this has become...
Oh, no doubt. There's no doubt about that at all.
It's like Disney World for fucking ravers and party people. And let me tell you, Pasquale, he knows how to run.
There's no doubt about it. I met him for about 5 minutes, like a few years ago in Vegas. I was at something with the Crystal Method, and they introduced me to him. Real nice guy. Man, my point is only that like humans don't fall in love with a non-human entity, like in the sense of a true human. You can't have a human connection with a brand. That's all I'm saying. But they do awesome things. Pasquale is the reason that people love Insomniac, right? It's not because
Totally.
that's what I'm saying. Ashlyn, how are you on time?
I gotta run, guys. Thing starts at 10. I gotta get there.
Yeah, we don't want you to be late for that. Come on, man. Don't fuck up the 3:11 gig.
I know. It's like once in a lifetime thing. So
what was their big hit? I'm trying to think.
Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging out. Bye. We'll see you soon. Anyway, the show continues.
The show must go on.
Move over, Roba.
Maddox, want to come over?
Move over so it doesn't look like we pissed off one of the guests.
She's out.
Yeah.
Come on. Hey, we're going to introduce Maddox to the room.
Maddox is in.
Come on, Maddox.
I had Maddox on the sidewalk while he went into the store, and some lady came up to me and she's like, "You look like your dog."
They literally both have the same color hair.
It happens. It happens. Well, like I said, I haven't been to EDC Vegas to the actual event, and I definitely want to go, if for no other reason, because I just know it's something that I feel like with a lot of things I've gone and seen, it's one of those things I feel like I should go see during my lifetime because of my interests in general.
Well, actually, you should play it. The one thing that I did
Thank you.
kind of notice. Bye. Have fun.
Later.
I feel like EDC Vegas represented a lot of genres. A lot. It wasn't very just down the middle. There was a lot going on. But there was a bit of a void with some of the break stuff, and I found it interesting. There's the best stages, honestly, for me, weren't even the major stages. It was the side art car stages.
Okay.
They were showcasing some of the newer talent, and I kind of thought to myself, man, some of these break artists need to kind of get involved in EDC and find a way in. And the funny thing is, Pasquale is a huge breakbeat fan.
Yeah.
I know.
He's a huge breakbeat fan. There's rumors.
I met him for 5 minutes, and when I was with him at the Crystal Method, we're playing with DJ Dan. It was a Crystal Method show in Vegas. There was an EDC Week event put on by Insomniac, and so that's how I met him. And he was really cool. And the way I actually met him was because I was hanging out with Scott and Ken and some friends, and he was there, and everyone's just talking, and it's loud, it's outdoor club thing, Vegas, so it's not like you sit there with name tags on the wall, And so he was just chilling, and so I asked Scott and Ken if we could take a picture, and so Pasquale, he took the camera and took a picture of us. It was so funny because I was like, "Oh, do you mind taking it?" And then he was no problem. He took, which you would expect. He seems like a cool guy. And that's why I asked. It wasn't like I knew he was Pasquale Insomniac and was like, "Oh God, should I ask him to take a picture?" That never even crossed my mind, dude. And I don't think it would have anyway. It was just people hanging out, and it's like, "Oh, we're gonna take a picture," and do you mind taking the picture? That's what people do. And he was cool. And then Ken was so funny. He's like, that's Pasquale from Insomniac. And I was like, no. I was like, great to meet you, man. And he was totally cool and humble. And and that's a lot of that same exact experience. Briefly for me, is probably a lot to do with how he got to where he got, because he's a good guy.
He saw raves in the 90s, and he has this. There's an article I read recently where there's a rumor kind of brewing that he's wanting to start to throw a breakbeat festival, start to incorporate that into the thing. Well,
they tried, so they tried. It's all these things, go on round and round, but it's like they tried doing a couple parties. They had I think they were Insomniac parties. They did one in San Francisco, one in LA, and maybe one somewhere else. Do you remember the name of those, Kelly?
No.
It was a series. It was something bass or something like that. And they had I think Icy, Crafty Cuts, Freestylers or something like that. They made Plump DJs. No, it wasn't Plumps because they couldn't come over. Maybe they did. Whatever. It was something in that zone, right? And and I thought, because I've heard some of this stuff as well, Anthony, and I thought, these guys have these guys and I'm not talking just about Pasquale, but anybody in a position of, let's just you know, bluntly call it power, of any level, right? Whatever level you're in, if you've got some influence and if you're running the show, whatever level you're in, right? There's no question you've got the choice. You can have 10 headliners back to back, or you can have 8 headliners back to back that get your draw there, if that's your concern.
Right.
And you have the power to give somebody literally unknown the opportunity to play right in the middle of all the greats. You have that power, and they don't do it. Very, very rarely do you see it done. Now, I know it happens some because I know some of the stories where it's happened some, and so kudos to those guys that do that. On the level, you know, in San Diego here, like the party I throw. I mean, I play different times throughout the day, but you know, if I hear somebody play one time at a party that I'm, you know, somewhat responsible for, if I hear them play once and maybe they were completely unknown the first time and they play and it's great, you know, the next time you bump them up and you put them somewhere different. Like to me, that's how the cycle evolves. I think the problem with whatever it is that's in Insomniac's mind with breakbeat is I think they feel like they've got to rely on sort of the incumbent, you know, people that might be your age, my age, Kelly's age, you know, whatever, that sort of forge the genre to bring the people. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's something different has to happen there.
I mean, even on a smaller scale, that's the challenge here in New York we have. You know,
yeah.
When I set out and created the Bass Collective, the day that I decided to start this company, the first person I reached out to was Keith McKenzie. Keith and I have a really long hit. I mean, we go way back when he was a kid, you know. So when I was throwing parties in Tampa and I was infused in the breakbeat scene, and we had Hybrid, and we had, you know, Rabbit of the Moon, and we had Icy and Baby Ann and all this stuff going on. You know, Keith was this young guy, and then you know, I started to fall in love with the new breakbeat.
I remember some of those pictures you showed me. Yeah, dude, they're awesome.
And when I talked to him about it, I told him what I wanted to do, and his first reaction was, "Really? You're gonna start a company that focuses on breaks and bass music in New York?" And I was like, "Yes," because look, I've been in the scene for almost 20 years in New York City, and I've had some great moments, but I don't want to do what everybody's doing, right? I wanted to do something fresh, and I went to the Beatport charts and I listened to the new breakbeat records, and I was like, you know, Wes and Omega Squad, and I was seeing all this shit. But then I was also seeing Fix and Keith, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is where I planted my seed, and I love where it's ended up, and it doesn't exist here. And he says to me, there's a crew called Vitamin B. Because I wanted to bring him here to play. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He's who connected me and Vitamin B together to bring Keith in to New York. And that's kind of what lit the match. But but what I've learned over the past 2 years is, you know, there's this very small audience, and I think we focus too much on that audience to be what puts us out here. My goal is to educate the young guys.
Yeah,
the kids. There's no reason why a guy who likes trap or Diplo or Major Lazer. Look, Skrillex put out a breakbeat record. So I feel like the youth just isn't exposed, you know, and you have these new talents like Left Right. I mean, come on. I heard this guy for the first time, and I heard him for the first time, and this is crazy how I heard about him. He reached out to me. I never knew who this guy was.
Well, and I love Chris, and he's not even that new. I mean, he's been making music for 10 years.
But I didn't know. So I get this message on my SoundCloud, on my Bass Collective page, because through Keith, again, I lit the match, and instantly a couple people heard, ooh, New York. There's another breakbeat crew or whatever. So he reaches out. He's like, I want to come to New York. I'm like, oh, well, it's nice to meet you. Let me see what I can do for you. Let me go on your SoundCloud.
That was when I moved here. Yeah.
Dude,
remember
and
that?
I remember hitting play and thinking, I got to go back to the studio and rethink my approach.
So good.
And that's rare that I hear a producer do something that makes me think that. But I really honestly thought the very first time I heard him, for me, he was the future of breakbeat. he brought something so dark and
raw.
sexy and raw and edgy. And then I meet him when he finally does come to New York and he plays a party here. Nicest freaking guy in the world.
And the coldest day of the universe.
In the coldest day of the year. And then all of a sudden, fast forward a year later, and this guy's, you know, punks, he's doing all these things, he's touring. I think that there is a audience. My biggest obstacle in New York is trying to figure out how to teach the young kids. Like I was taught. I mean, like we were all taught, right? We'd go to a rave in the 90s and we'd hear a new sound and we'd be like, holy shit!
We all started with trance.
Yeah, we all. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think one of the I get
what you're saying.
Yeah,
you evolve. And I really think these kids, man, they're going to these parties at Basement and girls and boys. They don't realize it, but they like breakbeat records. Thanks to Wookie. I've seen Wookie destroy Webster Hall and play trap and all this, and then he'll drop a breakbeat record, and I look at the audience, and they're fucking loving it, and their faces are melting, they're into it.
Right.
They just don't realize there's a whole world out there, you know? It's weird.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. I don't know what it is. I mean, I've observed a lot of it. I mean, I've honestly never tried to really figure it out, but I've had many a conversation about it, and I'm kind of I personally, I'm a much bigger believer that people should create what they want, and then that'll find its way around if there's an audience for it, it'll find its way. Like I do believe that with like really great music, you know. So it's weird. There are so many variables that go into why something is current or hip or can draw a crowd or whatever, you know. So I don't know, but I haven't seen it with, you know, there's other genres I really haven't that I've observed it as well. It's not just breaks. I mean, drum and bass is similar. Like there's no phenomenal main stage draw, you know, for drum and bass in America anyway, you know. So
yeah, there was a report that came out a few weeks ago that drum and bass is at its highest selling point in over 10 years.
Yeah, I disagree.
So it's kind of weird. I think that we all live in like this bubble, right? Like we know what we know what we experience, and
well, but there is no main stage draw for drum and bass in America.
No, not at all. No, I agree with you. But I can tell you in New York City, in the past, I will say 12 months ago, I remember, you know, and I can be a little bit, I don't know. Sometimes I don't drink the Kool-Aid because I've been around for so long, and I'm like, I've seen this. And, you know, we've all been there because we think we know more than the young kids sometimes, right? And I remember a year ago, I was having a conversation, and I was telling them about wanting to do a breakbeat party at Webster Hall, and they almost bought into it. And then somebody actually says, well, you know, drum and bass is coming back. And I remember having this idea in my mind thinking, are you fucking kidding me? Fast forward to a year later, it may not have blown up, but there are these little pockets of drum and bass that exist that breakbeat hasn't gotten yet, right?
Yeah. But
But I think drum and bass might be, you know, it might be the way some people get exposed to it, but drum and bass in New York City, all of a sudden, I'm hearing it in the basement of Webster Hall on a Saturday night that used to be nothing but dubstep.
Well, we've got a club here that is definitely in the top tier 5-tier clubs here. That's called Basement as well, and they have a whole variation of bass style acts come through. And I mean, I saw Dirty Phonics there, and they played a lot of drum and bass, man, and the place went off, you know. I guess my parallel with that is that it's like, just like you did kind of with, you know, whether it's Wookie or levels up to Skrillex or whatever, and you go to one of their shows and you hear them play a section of breakbeat, for example, you know, in the 125 to 130 range, BPM range, something like that. You know, that's like, it doesn't surprise me. It's just like listening to Dirty Phonics play half an hour of drum and bass, you know, in the middle of
Really?
30
Phonics? Wow.
Yeah, 30, yeah, like, you know, for 30, let's just say it was 30 minutes throughout a 6-hour night of music. That doesn't surprise me. I mean, you've got 800 people packed into a room having the time of their life, probably some for the first time.
Right.
you know, fans of whatever, and you know how it goes. By the time 3.5 hours is gone and you're doing whatever you're doing and the headliner comes on, bro, you're going to dance to anything. So that's why going back, like,
no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, that's how the shuffle, that's how it got invented, bro. It didn't get invented because someone was trying to do Instagram videos. The shuffle was like someone cracked out, started shuffling, and someone's like, hey, shuffling. But,
oh my gosh. I think what's overlooked at this point, and I think it maybe is too much of a risk, but I think everybody's gone into their silos and they get so incredibly involved in that silo that it's like breakbeat, house. Like when I go to the house of Yes, it's house music all night long.
I think, yeah, so I agree with you totally there.
Go out, we would go to a party and there was a drum and bass room and there was a breaks room, breaks in the house.
And that is what does not exist in New York, and I think you just nailed it. I think that the reason genres get looked over, dude, we're in New York.
Because you would wander into a room and you would have like and you could make the decision whether you like drum and bass or you hated it.
Well, shit, Tampa had a better understanding of how to break things than New York did at one time because of what you're saying. I remember I would go see, you know, there'd be Goldie or LTJ Bucum here, and then over here they would have Crystal Method and Icy, right? Yeah. And it was this thing. New York does not do that. No. New York has become this scene where if they are throwing a party, it's about the main room. Yeah. And clubs just aren't designed that way here, so that's probably a big part of it. But you're right. There was a time where this thing that was blowing up gave the side thing a chance to exist.
Where you have your locals.
Where you have your locals. Yeah. That's the, you know.
Well, yeah, so I mean, I agree with all those things and the different ways that different cities have done some of that. And I you know, that's like, I think someone like Glenn over at Future Sound of Breaks, FSOB down there in Florida, you know, he had a great run of doing those multi-genre shows before I really saw those being done a lot. And I wasn't in Florida at all at the time. I would see that when I would go down there. That's living in California and New York, and then going down maybe once a year, and here's this big multi-genre show. So hats off to him for doing that, wherever that idea came from or he thought of it or whatever, because I wasn't seeing that a lot of other places like you're saying. I mean, down here in Southern California, it's almost guaranteed. If you go to a party that's, let's say, mid-tier, so, you know, not an Insomniac level party or something like that, it's almost guaranteed it's going to be probably house or deep house and maybe even the entire night, like exclusively. Yeah. You know, and literally, like, it may not go above or below, you know, like the BPM range will be 120 to 123, and I'm telling you, it's pegged there. You know, so that's interesting, and it's great music. But I'm just saying, that's definitely a trait of Southern California, is that certainly for the mid-tier and smaller parties, you do see a lot of that, which kind of reinforces what you're saying. It's not there. You don't see a lot of multi-genre things going on. It's hard to do if you don't have 2 rooms. It's even harder to do if you don't have a crowd. So,
and the problem with 2 rooms is that if you don't have a crowd, those 2 rooms fuck your night up.
Yeah, three rooms don't help if you got the same 45 people, right?
Yeah. We unfortunately had to learn that, you know, the hard way here in New York. But
we went to go see Sander Kleinenberg last weekend, and it's at House of Yes, even a House of Yes, right? So it's in Brooklyn, and they let everybody in for free that has a ticket before 11. So they hold you in the first room until there's enough people there. And, you know, there's music going and people are dancing, but you don't see a DJ. And we're sitting there and we're like, who do you think is DJing? I was like, well, maybe they're just playing an iPod or something. And then the doors open, and it was like Beauty and the Beast, like, be our guest. And we just pour in there, and Sander is standing there, and he was playing to himself.
But the House of Yes is good in the presentation.
I was like, oh!
It was him playing the whole time.
Yeah, and I'm not impressed. I'm not that easily. Yeah, at this point.
Well, and Sander, I mean,
and I was like, that was so.
I'll tell you one thing I have seen. So I went to a party 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago. It was the week before 4th of July weekend. So it was called Genius Loki. You can look it up. It's Genius spelled just like genius, like Albert Einstein genius. and then Loci is L-O-C-I. And that term has some Latin interesting meaning, but aside from that, it's the name of this party, and very cool. And I will say hats off, not for any personal interest, but hats off for their music programming. They have 3 stages, I don't know, some over 1,000 people, but it's 5 hours down into Mexico. So that's a pretty big feat.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty big feat to get 1,000 something people. And it's, you know, it's camping. It's definitely camping. So you have to be, you know, able to or into that experience. And highly recommended from me, because I think it's been going about 5 years. I think this was their 5th year. And so kind of going along with what you're saying, I mean, these guys are the guys that run it, Henry Pope and Eduardo, I forget his last name, but those 2 guys are behind it. They're from LA and San Diego, real nice guys, been in the scene a long time, and they really know what's going on. And Anthony, I think that, you know, these guys are, from the bit I know about them, are probably from a similar mold as you or maybe myself, but the way you're talking about New York, because they certainly figured out that while there's definitely this big environment for, you know, Southern California, deep house, etc., there's no doubt that's there, and a lot of people love it, but they also figured out that they could do this thing in Mexico with 3 stages, do the programming right, make sure the stages are not overlapping each other, you know, for the same period of time every day. The stages have a different vibe. You know, one is very daytime beach vibe and hours for that. One is main stage and kind of hours for that. One is after hours out on a really beautiful point that overlooks the water and like waves crashing on lava rocks and stuff for the after hours kind of vibe. And they just got it down, man. It was so awesome to see it, because it's almost like someone listened to what you just said 5 years ago and was like, yeah, we got this.
Right.
And did it because it was all kinds of music, man. And it really kept it interesting, because, you know, like you know, if you first kind of walked in during an average part of the thing or whatever time of the day, you know, everyone's waking up or something, it'd be like some deep house going. You're like, oh, okay, another deep house, you know, festival party, whatever. But then it would get very dynamic, you know, and I actually enjoyed the deep house and all that and the tech house a lot more. Like a lot more. I enjoyed those sets way more because they weren't just sort of all day, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, and you're right. There seems to be a handful of people who understand, and I think you said the right word is you know, whether it's programming or it's curating, that's the key to a good party, and that's where people fall short the most for parties. Is, you know, they throw a bunch of DJs together and they don't really understand how a night should escalate, which we came from, right? Like that was almost like a given at a party in the 90s.
Yes. When people complain about like if an opening DJ is banging it out too much, like to me that's the promoter's fault. Like you should know
who you're hiring.
Yeah.
But you're right. Some of the places, and I think also with parties like Mexico, it's the setting, right?
Yeah, true.
Like so much of the setting. Like I saw that at PAX. And I was at PAX. It might not have been Mexico, it was Maryland. But
there's something to that you know.
Like, dude, there was trees, and my girlfriend and her best friends we're all staying in a cabin, and we're waking up and we're making breakfast, and everybody's getting dressed up, and then I go out and I see my boy Davidson Ospina fucking rocking it, and then I go over here and dude, let me tell you, bass music was alive at that festival.
Yeah.
At night. Yeah. So at the pool party, you were hearing some cool house. There was some funky breakbeat because, you know, some of the Vitamin B crew played it. Yeah. But it all felt very, very daytime. But then at night. So clearly the people at PEX understand what you're talking about. Is they understand how to program their night and their day in a way where it's you get into that climactic moment where, you know, you're right. Some of the parties, they start the wrong way. The wrong DJs are booked. I think New York is in an interesting place. You know, you talked about Webster Hall closing. Let me tell you, that's a big deal in New York.
Yeah, I could sense it's kind of a sad moment because it's like within Manhattan, it seems like one of the last, you know, sort of holdouts for, you know, going in the direction of a little bit more variety.
But I think for me, And again, I live with Ashlyn. So Ashlyn, I'm watching Ashlyn go through this moment where she's like, it's sad, it's this and that. I see it a little different, and I think maybe it's just how long I've been doing this, because I've seen things come and go. This is what New York City needs. It needs things to end. Because I've always believed that in life, when something ends, something begins.
Something else is
when
born.
a door closes, a door opens, right, Wes? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we true into our late, you know, being older and not being in our 20s, and everything is devastating. Everything happens, and it's the end, right? Oh, she broke my fucking heart. I think that Webster Hall is closing. I think that certain places closing. I think, look, I'm watching 2 of the biggest parties in New York say goodbye this week. They're breaking.
Yeah. Well, I think it's totally okay, as you know, we probably all agree. Like, it's totally okay to you know, to have your sorrow as these things take place.
100%.
But it definitely helps a lot, you know, and a lot of that's because it's associated with, you know, the loss of perhaps future memories that are as good as the ones that you've experienced within that environment.
Right.
But it also definitely helps to have some experience of years behind you to know that, yeah, it's going to be tough, you know. But
I'm excited for them, dude. I'm excited.
But something else will roll along, right? And so, you know, yeah, that's interesting. But that's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that, man.
People like Ashlyn and all the people that are, you know, and again, I was a part of that in a big way in a long time. I love seeing things end sometimes when they end at their peak.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to see a party go from here to here, and then that's what you remember. Like,
it's sad, dude. It's sad with any relationship with anything. It's sad to just watch it go. You know.
Yeah. So let's just say Webster Hall's awesome.
Yeah.
Girls and boys and basement and trash, bright nights, the new party Gotham. I mean, they've given New York City this gift of giving New York this platform, which has put New York on the map, honestly. That one club. Also Pasha, we can't forget Rob, you know, he passed away 2 years ago this week. Like, these people gave birth to something. I'm ready for these people to feel that breakup, to feel that sorrow, because I know in a year, there's going to be something new. There's going to be something fresh, and there's going to be
something will definitely happen for sure in New York. You know?
Oh yeah, especially in New York. So I'm excited to see what's next, because I've 30 years almost doing this business game, and starting in the metal world and going into the dance world for almost 20 years. I love still being into it so much that I'm ready for the next thing. I want to see who that next guy is. That's
why earlier when you talked about your last live music hurrah, I was like, what are you talking about, dude? You'll be doing this till you're dead.
That I will. I will do music till I die, but I don't think I will try to be as ambitious as putting a 5-piece band together with visuals and lighting and pyrotechnics, because that's going to take a lot of energy. And there's certain things I believe in putting things behind you eventually, right? Like, you go through it, you accomplish it, and then you let it go. And
nothing wrong with that, of course. Yeah,
the machine is definitely this is my money shot as far as being a musician. But I think I'm going to grow from this, and after this, I want to focus on developing artists. I want to take everything I've learned over the last 30 years. Like, B Kitty's my project in that way. Like, I want to see her nurture her talent and learn how to take Ableton and make these things happen and put out releases and see what it feels like when you hit 1,000 plays and then 2,000 plays and 20,000 plays. Like, I think I'm ready after the next maybe 5 years of focusing on this band to focus on how do we continue. You know, how do Mike? I have a 3-year-old.
You can teach me how to hit 20,000 plays.
Well,
that would be awesome.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the day we all wake up and we all find out SoundCloud is gone.
Oh yeah, I think
it's coming. You know that, right?
I meant to ask because I was looking for. I knew I saw something, and it was on Amanda's page, Beat Kitty's page.
Right.
I was checking some current stuff out because I thought she was going to be on. Yeah, and that's why I didn't ask it. Because it wasn't on Ashlyn's or your page. But yeah, so there's some. What do you know about that, dude?
Well,
like,
I hold back. I almost made a comment, and sometimes I make comments and then I have to delete them because people take it the wrong way.
no, I mean, there's an article here that's like some.
You really want to know my take on it?
Yes.
I want SoundCloud to be gone.
Okay.
Here's why I want SoundCloud to be gone. Because when SoundCloud started, I loved it just like I loved Beatport when it started, right?
Yeah.
When something is pure and starts with the best of intentions, it's amazing for people like us. Look, I remember being in a rock band and MySpace was that for me. But then there comes a time when people understand how to hack the system, how to ruin shit.
Yeah,
and let me tell you, I would be happy if all of it ended. If SoundCloud and Facebook and all this shit disappeared and it came back to how it was when we started. The hustle when you would make tapes and I'd have to see you physically in person to give that to you. And then that's how I got a gig, right? And now the SoundCloud.
You know, it's funny. It's funny you said that because I took I share some of that with you for sure, and I've made a point to stay busy, you know, or stay active with music and whatnot and releases. But I've also made a point to cut back a bit on either gigs that I'm getting offers or even gigs that I want to try to promote if it's my own show, you know? So, but just scale back like for the summer and take a summer and really like be part of the Southern California and California, you know, sort of music scene as a party goer or just as an attendee, you know, not as a hustle, so to speak. And it's interesting because I've gone out to a lot of these, some great, I mean, it's how I ended up at the Genius Loki thing, you know, like I've heard about it several times. I know it's a great place to play, you know, anytime as a DJ, producer, whatever, you know, and you hear, you know, you're looking for, you're shopping, you're introducing yourself to people, doing the gig thing, all that, you know, of course that was one way I could have approached it. But my thing this summer and year was like, look, I'm just going to I'm going to look at these things I've heard of. I'm going to get a ticket if I think it's interesting. I'm going to go if like the whole thing sounds interesting. So like for that, it's like camping, Mexico, surfing. Yeah, I love that. Like even if everything else is kind of whack, that part will be cool. Let's go. And it ended up being fantastic all around. And so it's really neat to see some of those things. But to your point and what you were saying about kind of, you know, the social media aspect of things, it's been kind of funny because I go to these things and, you know, certainly not everybody knows me, but there's no doubt I will run into some people because I live here in Southern California that know me, and their first thing is always, dude, I didn't know you were playing this weekend. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just here hanging out for a ticket. And people will be like, did you have to buy a ticket? I'm like, yeah, dude, I bought a ticket. You know, like I just came to hang out and listen to everybody, man. It's like it's almost weird for me to like, you know, it's just almost weird to be at a show and not be playing, right? So I've really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic, and I've soaked in. For me, I've soaked in a lot of new music that I would have never probably been exposed to or thought about if I hadn't just gone, you know, because I'm there for the whole 3 or 4 days, right? I'm not there for the day, which I'm going to play, or a day around them. You know what I mean? So, but to your point, but also to, you know, building to your point about the old way, quote unquote, what I've found with that is that, you know, it's really cool. There'll be some people that know me, and it's really fun to have that you know, the minority of the people there that might know me, and they'll introduce me to other people that clearly didn't know me, and just kind of meet them without the pretense of being a DJ or producer or whatever. And maybe my friend will mention that or whatever the case is, but it's cool, you know, but or we get to talking, and maybe both of us are. You meet all these people. It's a different way to meet people, and it kind of falls into that old school bucket you're talking about. And I find it's very, very refreshing, not just from like the let's go to a party, hang out, meet your friends, but also from the side you're talking about that social media has kind of replaced, which is like the business end of it, right? It's nice. It's really nice.
It's replaced a lot of it, though. It's not just the business end. And I have this conversation, we've had this conversation before, but it's good that you're going out and you're doing stuff like that. Like, I know that Anthony goes to shows besides the shows that he throws. He goes to shows besides the breakbeat shows and all that. I do the same. Like, we came up as fans, you know, doing this. So to go to something like that, it just seems very simple, but there's a lot of producers and DJs that they go into the studio and that's all they do, or they just play what they DJ. And to me,
yeah, I mean, I've always gone to shows with.
No, I know.
I'm definitely not. I've never in my life been a breakbeat exclusive guy, ever, never.
Oh, I know. I wasn't suggesting.
What's crazy is, what I find now though, and it's not that it's a bad thing, but when I was in a rock band, or even when I started with dance music, I'd go to a party. And I could count on 5 hands how many of the people in that room, backstage or whatever, were producers and DJs that you would know.
Yep.
Now, I go to Webster Hall, and there's 65 producer DJs in the green room, and nobody's watching the show.
I'm
guilty as charged. I'll sit back there and smoke some weed, and fucking party with the best of them. But
it's the Cracker Jack. It's the Cracker Jack. It's the Cracker Jack DJ syndrome.
Yeah, dude. It's like I'm sitting there, and when people are like, "Oh, Monikkr, oh my God, this and that." Look, I love being recognized, and I love people saying like, "I love your new record," whatever. But that's not necessarily why I do it. I do it because it runs through my veins, and I don't know how else to survive as a human being without music. But like, it's so different now, and I will sit next to a guy and be like, "Yo, I produce." I'm like, "Oh, great. Here's my SoundCloud." What's interesting is I remember when it was different. Here's my CD, right? Yeah. And I remember before that, "Yo, come hear me play."
Yeah.
That's what I think SoundCloud has erased.
Well, like 30 minutes, like somewhere back in our conversation today, you made a point, and I just forgot to make a comment on it. But you're totally right that you don't have to go out to hear.
Yeah.
Let's take drum and bass or breakbeat, because we use those 2 genres. But whatever it is, new disco, whatever. You don't have to go out to a new disco night to know what new disco is. You do have to go out to a new disco night to experience new disco with a crowd, but you don't have to go out to hear what it is. And that's very different than pre-internet, because you had to go out to do, so you had to go out. It was the only way you were going to get to hear it. And by nature of going to hear it, you also experienced the party or the group or the vibe. And so you were required to get both of those things in one shot. Nowadays, you can form an opinion purely based on listening to the sound in your white earbuds. And we all know that is never the best way.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're into. Regardless of, it doesn't matter if you're into reggae, whatever. That is definitely not the best way to kind of make a judgment call on what a vibe is all about, in my opinion.
Be honest, maybe it's just me, but come on. When was the last time you met somebody and they said, "Here's my SoundCloud link, listen to my latest mix," and you actually listen to the whole mix? I don't do that. I don't have that kind of time, right? So, not as a disrespect to them, but I don't come home and go, "Yo, I met this guy DJ so-and-so at Webster Hall at 4 in the morning. I'm going to listen to his mix." It's really weird, but it's so important for that guy to get that 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 plays on that SoundCloud post, where, back in the day, I remember Chris Milo, DJ3, or Sonics, or when I first heard Hybrid, I had to go see that. And after I saw that, I went to the party after, and the party after, and that's how you built this movement. Where now, I don't see how anybody's building a movement with SoundCloud plays. I don't. Yeah. And now you can pay for SoundCloud plays. Now you can get on Spotify playlists. We've lost. I mean, I started with a band who was playing metal, and this is crazy. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. So now, the other day, somebody's like, "I need this banner." I picked up my laptop. I put together a banner, and they had it in 3 minutes, right? And they were just like, "Oh, wow, this looks amazing. Cool, thanks." And I remembered when I was in a rock band and somebody said that, I had to go, cut things out, put it on a piece of paper, tape it, tape the logo, tape the wording, write out everything, Xerox it at the right kind of opacity so that it would look like I designed it on a fucking computer, which sit next to my house, and then I would make 500 copies on glow-in-the-dark paper and go to the Rocket Club in Tampa, Florida, and put it under every black light And every car, and I get in fist fights with other band members because we would take each other's flyers off. But you know what? When my band got signed to a record deal and we were opening up for Candlebox and Soundgarden, I fucking earned that.
Yeah.
I earned that 15, 20-minute set at Livestock because I had done 2 years.
Yeah.
Where now
it's an interesting phenomenon. I can't say I listen to a lot of different podcasts, but yeah, typically like Joe Rogan and a variation. That's more my pop culture stuff. Probably those interviews I enjoy. But then like TED Talks and tech stuff and things like that. But a little variation. You know, maybe 2 or 3 different podcasts streams I listen to. But I was listening the other day. I went back, I heard on one, so it led me to another. I actually had to go find it. But, you know, Shirley Manson from Garbage.
Oh, wait. Stop right there.
Why?
Because I just have to say this about Shirley Manson from Garbage. I love you. You're amazing. The other day I'm in the recording studio and Jennifer Cella, who's singing on this project, hits this fucking note in the cook. And every single person in the room looked at each other, and when she was done singing, everybody went, "Holy fucking shit! You just had a Shirley Manson moment." Shirley Manson, in my book, is one of the best fucking rock and roll singers of, I don't know, 90s and 2000s. Before her, it was Lita Ford, Pat Benatar. Like, dude, Shirley is the most underrated rock band on the planet.
Well, if you haven't watched,
if
you haven't listened to it and you're that interested or that much a fan, just go listen to I think it's like episode 850 something or 830 something, whatever. It's within the last year or a few months maybe even. But Joe Rogan and Shirley Manson, and just listen to it. He does a great job of talking with people.
Where do I find this?
Yeah, and you can just Google for it, and it'll find it. So Joe Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan Experience with Shirley Manson, and it'll come up.
How do you spell Rogan? R-G-A-N?
R-O-G-A-N. Yeah, it's a great couple hours, and even if you're not into Shirley Manson and Garbage, they talk a lot about these same issues you're tapping on here, Anthony.
Yeah.
So I'm also suggesting for anybody that's listening to this podcast, go check out that episode if you're a music person and you want to understand from a true veteran's perspective and a very long career person's perspective. You want to understand about 20, 25 years perspective in a career in music going from completely pre-digital to current. And their Garbage is about to go on tour with Blondie. Yeah. Summer tour kind of thing. So it's still very active, very, making a living, doing a career like that, right? A lot like you in different ways, Anthony. So I think it was really interesting. She hits on a lot of these things about at least her thoughts on why, I won't steal her thunder, but it's her thoughts on why some of these things you're talking about have transpired. And very factually, she gives some real information, in dollars and cents, and in some cases, some folks' names or companies' names in terms of how these things have unfolded. Very interesting.
And he's done 953 podcasts. We're a little bit farther behind him.
And he has an average of 500,000 views.
He's the podcast hero, like.
Who the hell is this guy?
Joe Rogan, you don't know he's from Fear Factor. He's awesome.
Fear Factor? Oh, Joe Rogan!
Yeah, that guy.
Holy shit.
He's a comedian. He's a comedian. He did news radio.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, you don't get
Fear Factor. He did UFC commentator since the beginning. Didn't
he get involved in fights?
Yeah, he's a UFC commentator.
Yes, that's right. Oh, dude, he's awesome.
He's a UFC technical commentator. He has been since the beginning. So all the really big fights, he's the guy that is there talking. You usually don't see him except for in the very beginning, but you hear him. That guy you hear, his voice is very distinct. Once you hear the podcast, you'll recognize him, sure. But anyway, that episode among many, but that one's a good one along the lines of what we're talking about. Check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna listen to
What else? What else? What else we got going on, man?
No, man. I mean, at this point, honestly, for the Bass Collective, I don't know. It's been a really weird moment for me with this company because, you know, when I started it, it was supposed to be one thing, and you know this. You know, things happen, and then you get veered this way and that way. I think for me, and even just in my life, this is the first time in my life I felt very, what's the word I'm looking for? Settled. You know, like both feet are planted. You know, music is going great. The hair career is going good. Personal relationships are good. I think now for the Bass Collective, I think my focus needs to be more about how, for me personally, is how I marry live music and dance music. You know, I never called the New York City Bass Collective that because of bass music. I called it because bass as a frequency was always something that just hit.
Right. I figured that.
Yeah. People are like, oh, so you just, no, we do all of it. And I think I would like to really focus on finding some bands. I want to find people with laptops and guitars. I want to find singers. I want to find performers. I want to figure out how I spend the next 20 years of my life influencing, but also nurturing the future going I mean, look, at our age, we've done this, right? We've done this for a while. I don't think it's over for us. I think, if anything, we're going to see more success as it goes. But, you know, we can't forget that there's another generation behind us.
Yeah.
And that has become my biggest focus. And I think maybe it's because I have a 3-year-old, and you start to think about your child and
what's happening.
You know, what's he going to be into? I want my kid to pick up a fucking guitar.
Yeah.
You know, so what's next is...
Well, that makes total sense. That makes total sense.
Yeah. What's next for me and this company, I think, is to take all of our experiences and help these new guys in New York City kind of grasp things that it took me 20 years to grasp and make music that hopefully, you know, entertains people. But I want to leave this planet having people think he didn't make. I don't want people to be like he made dance music or he made rock music. I want people to be like, yo, he just made music. And I think that's what's missing today. Like,
well, I agree with you. I mean, for me, the only thing I definitely agree with supporting the incoming, you know, crews and people, talent. I think, like, for me, like, one of those biggest things is, like, you got to do what feels right, man. Like, you can't, because and when you go listen to that Shirley Manson thing, like, it was almost weird listening to her say some of this a few similar things, because that was one of the things she felt was the worst thing about today's music market was, you know, she doesn't need, you know, she's very candid. You know, Garbage has great deals. They were massive in the 90s. They've made a career. Their manager's been great forever. They've done what they wanted to do, and that she seems to express that's very important, you know, to her, and it should be. So she's not saying any of these things like on the premise of like being jaded, right? It's all just commentary on what's going on, and one of the biggest things, like she says in reflection of what you're talking about, is that people don't take any chances or risks, man. They're so afraid that they're not going to get those social media clicks that they just don't take any risks, you know? And so, you know, for me, the only way I can think to rather than talk bad about that or say it's a problem, it's like just encourage people. Like if everybody making music, I'm interested in what you think about what I'm about to say. If everybody making music, regardless of your skill level, if everyone making music made the music that makes them feel good and that they're proud of to have their name on, then we would not have a homogenization of music problem. We would have a ton of diversity.
And I think we would have a musical revolution. I mean, look, if you guys haven't watched this, I can't stress this enough. I mean, I haven't watched all of them because my girlfriend said I wasn't allowed to watch all of them without her, which I love about her because she gets it. The Defiant One says exactly what you just said. The reason people like Jimmy and Dre and, you know, Trent Reznor and Marilyn Manson and Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen and Santana, the reason they left, they're going to die leaving the biggest mark you could ever leave on this planet.
Yeah.
Is because they took risks. There was a time in music where the only way you became famous was by going against the grain, right? You had to make something different. You had to work harder than this guy. It's
well,
different.
and I think that in many of those cases, probably it was like let's say, because I don't know any of them personally, right? And I can't get inside their mind. But if they in fact thought, hey, you know, the world of music is rubbish, then that certainly influenced what would feel right to them. And I think that's all I'm trying to say. Yes, along those lines of what
when I think another thing and the one thing that we can't deny is also the technology. So there was a time where the reason there was these music revolutions back then, in my view, is because you actually had to pick up an instrument, right? And play it, and you had to create it, and you couldn't use a sampler.
That's true.
Until but the show kind of, what's genius about the show is that it talks about that first, right? There's no way you became a star unless you learned how to play guitar, bass, and drums, and sing. You couldn't fake any of it, right? There was no lip syncing. There was no tracks. And
that's
hip-hop,
really good point.
and then hip-hop happened. And hip-hop happened because of Kraftwerk.
Right.
And Kraftwerk, if it wasn't for that moment in history where Kraftwerk brought that to the United States, Dre and Run DMC and the Beastie Boys, that drum machine would have never, well, not never, I mean, it probably would have happened, but it happened because of them. So when you watch the show, you realize that there's this moment in history where it's going down the line, and this is how people became successful musicians, and then there was a shift. And that shift was that kid in the ghetto who couldn't afford all the instruments and couldn't afford the music lessons, could afford a sample. And he could afford to drum a beat without the drummer, right?
Right.
And it's great seeing that there was one human being on this planet who was a part of all of it. He produced Stevie Nicks. He discovered Trent Reznor and Dre. And what's awesome about him, and I think I will probably use this knowledge now for the rest of my journey on this, is don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to sound like no one you're listening to. Don't be afraid to not make trap music. Don't be afraid to not use an auto-tune. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, and all that stuff you're saying, going back to our SoundCloud conversation, that is one of the things where, whether it's SoundCloud or it was whatever it was before or whatever it will be after, I did really, and I still do really like SoundCloud for that reason, because as far as I know, it's not the only, but it's definitely the largest community of people that have a way to put whatever they want out.
Right.
And I do think it'll be sad if it you know, for who knows what reasons, but you know, if it goes, you know, the way of the Napster, yeah, it'll be sad. It'll be sad if something doesn't replace it, you know.
It will, right? Because Napster died, and then we got something else, and then look.
Yeah, that's true. But Napster died for different reasons. If SoundCloud dies, it's probably because of similar reasons, in the sense of, you know, the big three or big five music not wanting to be around, but.
Well, they're going to buy it. They're going to buy it up. I mean, the writing's already on the walls, and I know some people in that industry that I've talked to.
Well, I hope it gets bought out rather than just goes away.
From what I've talked to some people that are in that world, and they're very close to those deals and how they're happening. So I think what happens with Spotify, with SoundCloud, this is just a prediction, is it does get bought out. But
yeah, there's been rumors of Apple Music buying it. There's been rumors of Pandora. I
think it's going to be Spotify.
Spotify buying it.
Honestly, I think Spotify has been, for me as an artist, my new focus is all Spotify.
Well, Apple Music at the time when they were even in the rumors about this, they went forward and bought Beats. So I don't think they would really care anymore, because they went and bought a bigger, better company in the first place. So they ended up with the whole Beats enterprise, the Beats radio and everything. So I think, you know, I don't have any inside knowledge. But
I think it's through Spotify. I think that, and
yeah, I agree with you.
had a meeting the other day, and this artist asked me, they're like, so what do you think I should do? I was like, I think you need to use everything at your disposal, but don't focus on just one thing. But really, do not make the mistake of dismissing Spotify. Spotify, to me, I think. Well,
no, but the thing with it is you have no control over Spotify. Is why I'm saying what I'm saying. Like I hope I don't care if somebody buys SoundCloud. That's fine. But I don't even care if SoundCloud goes down and something else comes up. But we in order for people to be able to express thoughts like we're talking about, like we think we help change the plain vanilla music or electronic music landscape anyway. You know, that's the foam that rises to the top, so to speak. That won't get any better or even be possible if the ability to self-administer, right, goes away. And you can't self-administer with Spotify or Apple Music or any of that shit. It's all, you have to have a distribution aggregator or connection to make that happen, and you cannot do anything to it once it's live. Like it's literally commercial product only that is on all those services. SoundCloud is the only one where it doesn't have to be commercial product. It could just be, I mean, I've approached people that I've heard rapping on their iPhone, and they posted the clip on SoundCloud, and I thought it was dope. So I hit him up and was like, hey, can you rap in a studio? Or like, what can we do together, right? You're never going to get that on anything that is a pure commercial release system, like Spotify, Pandora, any of those.
I agree with you. Actually,
you'll never get that.
But I also feel like, it's like anything else in life, man. I mean, I think there's two sides to every story, right? You can find that positive aspect of Spotify and how it gives anybody a voice.
I love Spotify, but it's not perfect.
Or SoundCloud, I'm sorry, or SoundCloud. But,
yeah.
But it goes back to how I started for me. Like, it was because I hustled a little harder at putting out flyers that we beat out the other band.
Yeah.
Things like SoundCloud delete that from the equation because you can go and pay for plays, or I think that.
Let me ask you, how does Pandora or how does Spotify, in that particular situation you're talking about with that concept of sort of, let's call it street team or street work, if you will, like how is Spotify any different than SoundCloud in that particular concept?
At least from what I've gathered in the meetings I've actually had and talked to certain people, Spotify, the way it's set up as a company and the way they set up the whole platform, is able to police how things are done. So you can't hack Spotify the way you can SoundCloud.
Right.
Okay. So I think that what's going to happen.
What do you mean by hack? I think you said hack. What do you mean by that?
Well, right now I can pull up a company in Russia. I can pay them a certain amount of money, and they will give me a bunch of plays and a bunch of comments and a bunch of this. And that's the problem. We become so relying on comments and this and that and that.
You can do that all day long with Spotify. All day long.
The only thing you can do with Spotify is get involved with companies that do playlists, right? No, because Spotify there's a whole network of services that are remarketers for Spotify streams. Playlist.
It's a
playlist, yes. My problem isn't playlists. My problem is your ability to manipulate people's comments. Your ability to create perception, which
you can't comment at all.
And just the platform on Spotify, because it doesn't have all the comments. It just kind of narrows it down in place. So I know that you can get on playlists, and I know that you can do that, but I would love it if Spotify went, here we go. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it accessible for local artists and people without deals to get on our platform, but we're going to remove the comments. We're going to remove all the shit that makes it just not fucking real and cluttered. What I want to do is be able to go to a site and press play and make my own decision. I don't care.
These comments really bother you, don't they?
Well, because if you click on enough of them, and you can even do this with the big guys, they're all lies, and it doesn't matter. Look, what matters is how I hear it.
Yeah.
Great, fucking like it.
Yeah.
One thing at Spotify I like, I get these.
Well, I don't even look at the comments. I don't even look at the comments. I just listen to the songs. I don't even look at the comments.
I do, but that's because we come from a different
But it also
era.
pops up.
But it pops up. Look, I get guys that send me this thing and they're like, "Yo, look at all the comments." Listen.
Oh, weird. You do really?
Totally. I want to hear the song, and what I like that Spotify's doing now all of a sudden, and again, it's they don't have it down perfectly, but I now, based on how I'm listening, I'm getting emails letting me know people are playing in my town.
Well, so all those things. Those things you're saying. I mean, definitely we disagree or have different perspectives on a few of them, but I think that some of them are great that they clean it up. That's fine too. If it makes it easier to get things. I just hope the one common thing we're talking about. I really hope that the music industry doesn't do away with the competition, which is clearly a competition issue. It's definitely a competition issue for them to have a platform out there that allows the creator to publish whatever they want. If that goes away, then it's going to get even worse with the vanilla of music.
Yeah,
you might be right. I'm definitely not disagreeing with you on that, but
because things get curated. I have some very specific reasons. I mean, think when the creator has no control at all. In fact, when the creator has, I should phrase it differently. When the creator has any restriction at all to what they can create and post, and I'm not talking about legal issues like copyright. I'm talking about original music. If the creator has any restrictions whatsoever on what they're allowed to post that's within the law, okay, right? The problem begins because that variability is a threat to all the commercial entities that make their money off streaming or digital sales, because it chews into the mind share of people that are out there listening to music for X hours a year, because some of it's going to be spent on this service that is not monetized in a way that benefits the traditional music industry monetization or revenue streams. And so that's where that will be a sad day if we lose the ability to have creator published without any restrictions, with exception of legal issues.
Well, what if, and this is where I'm thinking it's going to happen, and I had a conversation with a lawyer about this that is a pretty big lawyer in the industry, and here's the perspective that I'm having all of a sudden. What if Spotify said, we're going to buy SoundCloud, and we are going to allow people to upload music just like SoundCloud did. We're going to streamline it where you can only listen and subscribe, right?
Yeah.
We're going to block the ability to pay for plays and pay for comments. And the subscription is going to be how you get access to all the bigger artists.
Yeah,
right?
and I think
if you can do that, if you can say as a company, you're all welcome. But as a listener, if you want access to the guys that are putting all this money into this music that we obviously legally have to pay for because they're on Warner's umbrella or Universal's umbrella, if they can say, look, we're going to have a subscription because we have to pay these bills, but you, the little guy, still gets to be a part of the movement, I think that Spotify is forward enough thinking, if they buy SoundCloud, to create that platform. I don't want SoundCloud as I don't want what SoundCloud was when it first started to vanish.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think so. If it happens kind of like you're talking, and the technology is obviously there. SoundCloud obviously made some steps in that direction to try to appease labels with copyright issues and whatnot. They obviously rearranged and got rid of a few things that were super annoying, like the groups and all that. So I think you're probably right. They were kind of at least thinking along those lines, or maybe they were trying to look more viable or whatever the case is to marry up better with the way that something like Spotify or other services like that work. And I think, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think,
well, think about it this way, like if I were to buy SoundCloud today, I don't think I would buy it just to get it to go away. I would buy it for all your subscribers.
Yeah, of course.
A big businessman would go, okay, so I'm going to pay you $40 billion for your subscribers and your format and the way you set up whatever. We're going to hook it up with our shit. But think about the email I get. You're going to get
but they've got
40 million non-Spotify subscribers to subscribe for, hey, you're a SoundCloud user. we're gonna give it to you for $5 a month instead of 10. I think that Spotify, even when I go on Spotify,
well, that's why you buy. That's why, and you know they have metrics on the existing overlapping audience. There's all kinds of data analytics that they've clearly done before they buy any subscription service that's in a similar genre, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, whatever. They're going to buy things that get those subscribers that have common interests. I think that totally makes sense.
And that's the value with SoundCloud. I think the only value to buy them would be to buy their subscribers and get them out of
but hopefully they leave some way, you know, and like you said, there's these different tiers perhaps, or, you know, there's some additional functionality that is not in Spotify today that comes along with whatever the user base acquisition entails, and they don't do away with that. You know, if it goes to a purely business curated music selection, the EDM world is doomed.
No, I agree, but can you imagine?
Because you'll get zero creativity at the top, because the pile of people that are able to now create content is so big that the pipeline that used to be there when it was, you know, when you had to get studio time and you had to do all those things to get your music created, you know, that was a barrier to entry. So clearly a lot of that barrier to entry has gone away. And we've all witnessed that the barrier to entry has almost nothing to do with a creative person's ability to make something great, right? Which can be subjective, but they can make something totally non-mainstream and it becomes the next great thing, whatever. But we've clearly seen how the barrier to entry of the $1 million studio, the $100,000 studio, the $10,000 studio, the $500 studio day, and now, you know, the owning your own studio and getting professional quality, none of that has anything to do with the ability for a creative person to create great content. None of it.
Let me ask you this as a label. So this is one of the reasons I feel so strongly and why I would be happy if SoundCloud was gone and Spotify took over. What I've noticed with releases is I've started to shift away from talking about going to Beatport or go listen to me on Spotify or on SoundCloud and telling people to go to Spotify, because one, we all know we can monetize, and not that I'm going to make $1 million off this, but maybe someday I can. Maybe we have a big hit.
You gotta go listen to that interview with Shirley, man.
And I will. But here's the thing. What I've realized is I go to make my banner, and there was a time where my banner in sequence would be Beatport, SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify. Spotify is now #1.
Yeah.
Right? So somehow, like, it found its way, because as a user, I love fucking Spotify. This is great. I can pay this much money. I can get access to everything. From a purely marketing perspective as a company, if I was the head of Spotify and I was over here looking at SoundCloud right now, my goal would be for that SoundCloud fucking logo to disappear and make sure I replace it with Spotify. And out of respect for how music and technology works today, I can't imagine how that guy would not implement a system into his system that would allow all the people that uploaded all that music to continue to exist.
I think they will. I think they will. I certainly hope they do. I guess that's my wish, is that I hope they do. You know, that's all.
If they don't, they'd be just deleting an entire movement. Like
they would. They would, and I'm hoping they realize that they've got an opportunity to do something great.
I love SoundCloud, and it's been good to me. It's been good to a lot of us, but like, it's also just, it's too, I don't know.
Oh, by the way, I don't even love SoundCloud. Kelly can tell you, it's like one of 11 distribution channels that we use. It's not like I mean, we have decent presence on it, but it's not like, I don't even think it's our best channel in terms of the label or my own artist connection with people that then interact back with me from an artist perspective. SoundCloud's not the one where I get the most interaction and authenticity from people approaching me with real questions about music stuff. It's not SoundCloud.
No, at all.
So,
and you know what's crazy that you say that is Huda Hudia, perfect example. You know, we did.
But it's also not Spotify because nobody can interact with me. You see what I mean? That's the weird.
When I think that's the thing that Spotify needs to implement, right? So Spotify, I mean, again, we could probably sit in the room with the guy from Spotify and give him all these ideas. He's probably like, oh, I've already thought of this. But like,
Yeah,
I was talking to Hudia, and I went to promote something that we were involved in together. I'm like, give me all your social media links. He's like, huh? I'm like, yeah, you know, like this and that and this and that. And he's like, I can give you a Beatport link. He has nothing else. This guy is doing Kaleidoscope without focusing on any social media. And that blew my fucking mind.
Facebook, but
but not in a way like other people, you know? And I'm like, give me your SoundCloud. He's like, I don't do any of that. And I'm thinking, and here I am trying to build this whole SoundCloud thing.
Well, I think I mean, you can slice social or whatever internet presence into a few things. I mean, I certainly do. And my first jump off to a lot of this was from being a longtime reader and fan of DJ Tech Tools, and that Ian Golden over there is a really sharp and insightful guy in a lot of ways, you know, and the people he's been able to work with over the years are also almost, you know, cut from the same cloth. I mean, it's a great group of guys to listen to their ideas, if nothing else, because, you know, they've always been huge proponents that you do need, you know, you do need to be on the internet, quote unquote, but they're also pretty huge proponents that you need to think about having control of your brand, not to be confused with branding in the sense of inundating everybody with it, but being in control of what represents you and making sure that it is in fact findable. That's different than a lot of this social media chatter and spray and bullshit that goes on, is being there. You do need presence, I think, because you need to, there's a side to this that's professionalism, whether it's professionalism in your audio quality or whatever, you know, but there's, to me, there's a piece of quality and professionalism in every single thing you let out there. And I think that is got to be on the internet, but it's also very different than being some sort of social media wizard that's playing the algorithm games and the likes games and all that stuff you're talking about that drives you nuts. I don't like that stuff either. So, because let me give you some examples, at least of people I've run into and been fortunate to do a collaboration with. Dub Pistols are a great example, Anthony. Those guys, like, you go look at the feed of their shows, like the shit they play, like it's crazy, dude. Like they're like as close to famous as like you or I would like be like, holy crap, that's awesome if you're playing their tour all year long. But then go look at their social media, look at like the numbers aren't that high, and I think it's because they've just got a really like a high portion of the numbers that they have, I think, are really actually paying attention. And I also don't think that their social media presence represents their entire fan base, but I think they also realize it's necessary, right? Because you got to be able to go find Dub Pistols, you know, Diamond in the Rough or whatever the name of the new album is.
The return of the Pistoleros.
Yeah, you got to be able to find it, right? You know.
But you know what I love about them? I just Googled them and it brought me to their own site. I just had this conversation yesterday about this. We're about to launch a new website, and here I am, and I'm like getting all intricate, and I want a collective page. I want a page for all the artists, and somebody goes, "Why don't you just link the Facebook page?" Then and I thought, you know what? That's true. I spend so much time trying to put people into all these other social media outlets.
Yeah.
I just literally Googled them, and it just took me to them.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean when I love all these social media sites.
Well, so for me, like if you Google me, you know, I'll be in the top 3 results. Will be my actual website.
See, and that I think is key, and that's the thing that I want to do now with our new site is I want people to go there, have access to all our social media. Look at this; their social media is right on top. Beatport, awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've lost as artists. Like we're not pointing shit to ourselves. We're
Kelly will tell you
format so they benefit.
Well, I feel like, I mean, I because of years back, the references I made to DJ Tech Tools and those guys, and I'm saying that because credit's due. That certainly was the distinct articles on their website about this very issue 5, 6, 7 years ago. You can still find them. Go read them. Anyone listening, go read them because Kelly will tell you. Yeah, Kelly will tell you. Like I I'm incessant with both the Juice label and the Wes Smith label, if you will. I'm incessant that literally everything important starts at the websites and then it goes from there. Right, Kelly?
Yeah. Yep.
That's the way we do it.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, that's the way we do it. And that's why you end up with a website that has, you know, all of the original content that the way you wanted it to be presented. And then it ends up getting butchered throughout the social sphere in every which way, right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, man, I just want to go back to, you know, when you earn things in the music industry, and we all know how hard this is. Like, I feel like I've spent the last 10 years putting too much value on platforms giving me value.
Yeah.
And not enough value on my music. Not enough value on what I really thought was important. And I mean, I had the same manager for 10 years, and I made a lot of money, but I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I was thrown out there to do all these big name things, and I don't even talk about them when I talk about my music because I'm not proud of it. But like, I think that musicians need it. Man, it needs to go back to like going to the bar and seeing the band, or somebody giving me a fucking CD, or like, you know.
It's really frustrating to post something online, and it can be about whatever. I went in a kayak today, blah blah blah, and you get like 150 likes on it, but you put out a song that you spent hours and hours, and like you'll get 4 people.
Dude, here's
well, I think
this out. So check this out.
I think a thing that people, especially younger, this is pro tip from my perspective. I think something you have to think long and hard about is like if you want to perform, like DJs want to perform, right? And so a lot of us got into producing because we realized, you know, that was a route to some exposure that would help your gigs differently, right? But so in that light, which is what a lot of people are in that zone today, you know, DJ producer, I think you really have to think about when you look out there at the parties and the videos of, you know, Diplo and Skrillex and whatever, and all the awesome stuff they're doing and they're enjoying, and hopefully that is in fact the case. I think you got to ask yourself if, like, you got to, like, at some point you got to think about what point between playing in my bedroom and playing to 100,000 people, you know, in Egypt, where in there is what's important to me,
right?
You know, because you're probably, I'll never say anybody won't get to the 10 out of 10 mark. But what I will say is it including myself, I've continuously surprised myself at how much more I've enjoyed some of the things down at the 3 and 4 level, the 2 and 3 level, than I have things at the 7 and 8 level, so to speak.
That's crazy that you're saying that. So yesterday, I took my girlfriend out for dinner, and we were starting to talk about Beauty and the Machine, and she's great because she really wants to understand where I'm coming from. And I found myself telling her, when I was 17, 18, and I was playing music festivals, opening up for all these big famous people, my dream was to sell 10 million records, have a world tour, and sell out every arena, right? My goal is no longer that. My goal is to now create the kind of music that maybe plays in front of 5,000 people a night.
Yeah.
Or 3,000 people a night. And have those 5,000 people stick with me for the next 10 years. Because I realized that stardom has become so insane and so not real that I no longer want to be Diplo.
Well, stardom is without question, stardom is a business endeavor, and it's a business endeavor and I have no problem with business, but I should say, actually, let me rephrase that. Stardom is an enterprise business endeavor. Like it's the top size business in the game is the stardom part of entertainment, and then like many other industries, whether you're a software developer or an app maker or whatever, a grocery chain guy, whatever it is, that a cabinet builder, there's all these variations, and there's spots where you can make money and it's not enough money, and then there's spots you can get to where it's enough money to live, And then there's spots you can rise up to where you're making more than enough money to live. And maybe that's the spot where you get to and realize, damn, maybe there's that balance, like you're saying. These shows that are like, I'm collectively, whatever I'm doing in music, I'm making more money than I really ever thought I would or I need to. And I want to figure out how to maintain this over a long time rather than like get caught up in the enterprise venture capital stardom game, so to speak. Because that's when people start buying likes and comments and all this shit that becomes, we're agreeing, a total distraction in the consumer, the recipient trying to find shit. It's crazy.
And the internet, as much of a blessing as it is, there's just too much information.
It's too much.
I mean, I can't even keep up with the amount of promos I get anymore.
Right. I don't even want to download things anymore because then it has to take me to another place and another place.
Kelly, for like a year, maybe more now, one of the things Kelly, bless your heart, has helped me out with is just downloading the promos from the multiple sources they come from. And it's like, I feel sorry for it. We might just stop doing it because it's like I have to ask myself. It's one thing for me to try to focus on my creative interests, but it's another thing to, even if I pay people, which I do, to ask them to focus on mundane things like the trappings of a promo system. It's insane.
Dude, the worst investing that I could have ever done in my career was I was part of the Grammy committee here in New York. Again, I had this conversation with a producer that's producing Beauty and the Machine with me. We both sat on the Grammy committee for years. We were part of why you got nominated. And I was also a Billboard reporter, which was part of the reason you became a top 10 hit on the billboards. And by the way, some of the weirdest, craziest things happened. But because I was a part of that for almost 5 years, my email never got deleted when I left. The amount of promos I get from record labels and still phone calls every once in a while, it's actually, it hurts more than it helps. Because if I don't do this for a week, I go back on the week after and I have 200 things to listen to. And I hate to say this, out of 200, 190 of them suck.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I actually, like, for me, like, I've witnessed a little bit of some of the tiers of things, with what I'm doing. And I think there, I several years ago, I pretty much came to terms with the fact that either someone's going to have to find you, as happened with, and this is why I do think social presence is important. I don't necessarily think the chatter is important, but the presence is important because, and having some distribution presence, etc., which you can do with very little money. So it's at least important to have that presence. You don't need a record label to do it, but it's important for it to be there because I will say that, like, a few years back when I realized I got to do my thing and someone's either got to find me and be interested because I don't have time to chase down and try to convince people of all this stuff. That was one mindset. And the other was if I want to or was going to try to get my material, let's say, on maybe a label that I aspired to, let's say that, I don't know, Night Bass or Dirty Bird or whatever, I've been to their parties and I really like it and I decide, man, that would be a really neat achievement and I think it's a good fit or whatever. I also came to terms with the fact that, through somewhat organic methods, I'm going to have to end up meeting somebody who's in the circle of trust there to get that to happen. It isn't going to, so again, and so in that channel, again, kind of committing to myself not to waste a ton of time trying to impress that sort of person from 3-4 tiers removed. I just think it's futile. So going into exactly what you're saying. So that's why we do what we do today, focus on, creating, music, the artwork, doing it through the websites, and it goes out on its way. And that's how the Crystal Method and both the Dub Pistols, I never met either of them in my entire life, dude. They both completely lucky that they heard something and for whatever reason were interested in something I did. That's how those relationships came about. And then there's other relationships where I met the people because I was doing gigs at a festival or at a club, and I got to meet them in person, and you know, you either people you do business with, man, you either get a vibe or you don't, man. It's like you might do business once with people that you really don't vibe with, maybe for some commercial endeavor, or maybe it works, make some money, whatever. But it's highly unlikely you do business with people that you just don't get along with, or like you wouldn't invite to your home. And it goes both ways, right? So
let me ask you this. You made a comment that's interesting, because I find like there's this fine line. You said commercial presence, right?
Yeah.
And I think that Crystal Method, I don't know enough. I mean, I remember the Dub Pistols, and I'm going to research this more, but
I mean, they're UK bands.
But here's the blur. There's a blur. And the blurred line is this: presence and perception. And that's what I think has shifted in the music industry, where a presence, right, would be access. Your ability to find something and be into it. Right. But it's the perception that I think has gotten bastardized, because the perception is no longer relevant to the presence. I don't think that because you have presence, it equals the perception.
Well, how do you measure? How are you measuring the perception? I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, I'm not measuring it. I think everybody else is by plays.
Well, how do you think
likes it by this? So, like, I guess the heart.
That's what I'm asking is, what do you think the label is?
What? How do you balance that? Because I look at certain labels and I think to myself, really, you have 500,000 followers? There's no fucking.
Oh. Yeah, I see
perception, but they.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So I think that that's been my biggest obstacle, is I want my presence and perception to be the same. I want, even if I only have 3,000 people that like my label, I want them to be real.
Yeah.
But perception is not good enough. You know.
Well, I'll tell you
my record if I have 3,000. Fucking
yeah, I got
followers. You. So I think that this is where the SoundCloud thing and all these things drive me nuts, because the presence you're talking about, I agree, it's the most important part. It's been the most important part since the beginning of the music industry.
Yeah, you need a way to be found. That's the presence, right? You need a way to be found, and that goes back to what I was saying.
The perception is all bought.
There's even.
It's just really hard.
There's a thing.
Well, I have two like areas of comment, like response on that. So one is the measurement that you're using as the example of perception. I totally agree that is a rough road, and that is weird. And I you know, we've advertised sometimes, you know, like not like farms, and there's some really deceptive ways you can do that stuff, like pay-per plays and stuff like that. But we've done advertising before that's generated some interest, which I would say is the wrong audience. Okay, and so that's halfway in between, you know, getting your presence out there, and then this wide spectrum of the stuff that really annoys you in terms of perception, right? And it annoys me too. And so we've touched the lines of some of those boundaries where we ran advertising. And it's very complicated because there's just so many people online. We didn't intentionally get the wrong people, but we did. And so you have to clean some of that up, and you have to kind of backtrack a little bit to try to get back to what you're saying is the kind of perception you would like it to be. And I do agree with that. And there's some mistakes that you know, over 5 years that I would clearly say that I've made in terms of trying to understand how it all works. And in doing that, you make some mistakes, right? And then you got to clean up some stuff and backtrack a little bit. That happens. But that like farm stuff and all that crazy shit, like pay somebody that has 100 people in Russia to just go comment and like and make up shit, we've never done that. And that's not advertising. To me, that's like gaming the system. Advertising can be questionable too in terms of, you know, what you pay somebody to advertise. But advertising is a pretty traditional and old industry. You basically are paying a network to put your content out there in front of people. If it gets in front of the wrong people, that doesn't do you a lot of good. So that's another problem that you didn't specifically touch on, but it is another problem. And I'm mentioning it because there's nothing wrong with advertising, but you got to make sure that you at some point believe you found the right way to find the right people. Otherwise, it ends up being the wrong results, and that's no good either. it starts to become, the wrong results in legitimate advertising, they start to become just as bad as the like farm shit, because it's not what you meant to happen, but it's what happens, and then you got a problem, right? So you got to stay away from that. That's just a comment and suggestion for anyone listening.
And again, I think the internet has been the culprit. There used to be a time that you knew that if you called this PR company,
that's true. That's true.
Person, you were buying a professional person with all this track record. Where now I get these emails, hey, we want to expose your music, and then I look them up and I see that they're getting all these plays. So my first thought, let me pay $60 and get them.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, the barrier.
And I'm like,
so the same positive barrier of entry that's gone for the creative to create. That same reduction in barrier of entry is also reduced for the unethical folks in the world that want to do like farms. So, or shitty PR firms or whatever, right? There's no, the barrier to entry to be a notable PR firm is gone. So you're right. And yeah, we've fallen victim to that a few times. These are just lessons we learn, I think, with all the technology and the good parts that are there as well. But the other thing I was going to say about the perception piece, Anthony, that I didn't hear you note, was that I do believe that, yes, perception can certainly be measured and is quite often, unfortunately, measured in quantity of likes or comments or these types of things you mentioned. There's no doubt that there are people who measure perception that way. But I'm pretty sure that perception is also measured in a point I made earlier, which is your quality and your sort of professionalism. Because that's one of the reasons I've always had a website, and I've always done it myself, and I've always put the time in to make sure it's there. Because I can tell you, between the Crystal Method, Doug Pistols, maybe Punks, I can't totally remember how that relationship came about, but maybe that one, in terms of the record label opportunity. Let's see, the TTR World Tour, the video game with Playrise and PlayStation and all that. I can tell you without a doubt, except for maybe the Punks thing, all those things, and then a few other things like those, Electric Love Festival, those gigs, that kind of stuff. Some of the DC Subs Dance family, those guys. I can tell you almost all of those digital introductions, if you will, came by way of my website messaging system, not Facebook, not those things. And I do believe that and I know for a fact several of them, the biggest of those anyway, financially speaking, I know that's how they came through. And there was no doubt that there was a perception. So going to your perception thing, the presence was there. They found me because the website ranks high in the list 3-4 top results always, if you look for variations on my name or Juice Recordings. And they found it. And I do believe they saw it and said, hey, man, this is cool. Like, these people have a website. They've got great art. There's a theme to it. It doesn't look like everything else. And that's because it's created, it's created originally, right? It's like what I want to do. Or if it's a graphic designer, it's what the graphic designer wants to do. I don't force people to do things. Like, I find people that do things that are similar to what I think they should be, and that's what kind of makes up that presence. And I think that's perception as well, don't you?
I do, and I think I agree with everything you said. I think the biggest obstacle, not that it's impossible, is to have that result that you've had in today's market. Because I think that you and Huda and Icy and even Keith and you guys stuck to something, and even though I veered this way and missed out on probably the last decade of what you guys have been doing, you guys stuck to something in a way that makes what you just said true.
Well, so, and I've got fans. I'll tell you, there's no question about it. I've clearly, over the last 2 years, I've clearly diversified my music production, not in just sounds, but genres, all of it, BPMs, the whole thing. And I can tell you, there's music of mine that's, some of these recent releases, the ones that are on the wall behind me, and Kelly can tell you, like, there's no question about it. It's some of the same people that like that stuff, and it's got nothing to do with breakbeat, dude. and it's getting 2 and 3 times the quantity of plays that my breakbeat stuff gets, and that doesn't mean I'm going to stop making.
I can tell from a
it doesn't mean I'm going to stop making breakbeat, but I do think it's an interesting thing that goes along with the presence and perception.
100%, but I will tell you this, and to not see this, and I'm going to tell you this from a fan's perspective, because I will say this, I've been a fan of yours for easily since I first heard about you way fucking back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So,
back in the cobweb days.
So, you know, people like you, and I was having this moment the other day when I'm thinking, how am I putting out 2 records on Kaleidoscope right now? And even though I've had bigger successes over the past 25 years, that's this really super cool moment, right? Like, yeah, dude, I remember going into a fucking record store and seeing that artwork, which hasn't changed, by the way, in 20 years.
Right.
At least listening to it, some of it was great, some of it I wasn't into, but it was drawn, right? And the same holds for you, like you and Rick West. I mean, there was these names that came, and they always kind of had the substance. I think it's great that you are now finding a new audience, but I don't think for a fucking minute it's because you're not Wes Smith. And that is, if anybody's watching this and wanting to learn something, is that when you create something from a good place and an honest place, and you build a brand the way you're saying you have, your future fans are only your future fans because of your greats. Because that's where you build this name, and where Hoodie's built this name, and Crystal Method. Like, I am the believer of never forget your past, because it's how you get to your future.
Well, I've never forgotten my past. I've never forgotten my past. And,
no, I'm not saying that you have. I'm not saying that you have. What I'm saying is, as a fan, it's really fucking dope to hear you say that. Because as someone who knows better than the guy who just found out who you were last week,
yeah,
they have no fucking idea how hard you would dance to some of your records, or you know what I mean. So I think I mean, I thank you. I appreciate it totally, Anthony. I totally do, and I know there's others like, you know, with similar sentiments as you. And it's you know, Kelly can tell you, I've never ever, I've always and always will appreciate everything that I've done with any kind of music since anything I've made. And I also think that, you know, I've had some really cool opportunities to travel around, both as a fan of music and as a performer of what I've done in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think that those experiences have exposed me to a lot of things that I feel like I can do, and I feel like they're interesting to me. And so I'm just incorporating ideas and from people I've met and shows I've heard and moods I was in. And, you know, for me, that's making music or art, you know, and that's really what you're hearing. And so I think that's, you know, I think that, there's unquestionably, I have fans that do not ever want to hear a breakbeat. I can tell you that. I know it because they've told me. They're like, stop making any breakbeat. Like, literally, they've said that. And that never even crosses my mind. It's not like that for me. Like, I'm gonna always have those roots and elements, I think. If one day I don't, it'll be because I just don't feel it anymore. But I always feel it. But I do play shows, you know, like I've had these opportunities to play in shows where they're truly multi-genre. There's things going on. And I think it may help, like, not just towards you, but like in general, anyone listening, and for themselves. It's like with a lot of exposure to different things, it's kind of like traveling around on a boat way back in the 1400s or whatever, right? And you see new food and you're like, damn, I like curry. I'm going to go back to England and cook me some curry. You know, like I don't want to keep eating fish and chips or whatever, you know? So like maybe once a month you have some fish and chips, you know? Like, you always love your fish and chips and it's got a soft spot, but damn, that curry's good, you know? It's like, I don't know. So you just, you know, and then maybe one day you make a curry sauce for your fish and chips. I don't know, but it's like that's how I look at it all. And if it feels like something I want to eat,
then I do it. You know? And that's I'm saying this because anyone, especially younger, that may listen to these things now or in the future, I just think it's really important not to be concerned about doing what you feel like you want to create. I think that's paramount. I think you got to do that, you know. And there'll be times when you create something for the money. I've done that. All these things, you know. But you'll find your way. I'm just suggesting that I think most people that are you know normally processing in the brain, humans, I think they'll find it. The things they do that they really feel good about, that's the stuff that they're just going to continue to do.
And I think I'll add on to what you're saying, again, if anyone young is listening, don't be afraid to fall in love to a song. Don't be afraid to have a song be the song you remember over your first heartbreak. Don't be afraid to love something that isn't on the radio, and don't be afraid to love something that your friends hate.
Yeah, totally.
I think that music got me through my awkward moments, and it gave me my best moments, but it also kind of like held me at my worst. So I think that as listeners, these kids are getting just inundated with crap, and in there somewhere is always a good. I mean, look, I love pop music. I grew up on Michael and Prince, and they were as pop as they fucking came. So there's always good in pop music. There's always that one thing that shines, right? Look, Diplo has done it, Skrillex has done it, Mariah Carey's done it, Prince has done it. They've had their moments. Just don't be afraid to accept the fact that music is a soundtrack to your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And I totally agree with you, Anthony, and that's a more eloquent way of saying what I was saying as a DJ producer in my own production and content, and you know, it's saying like, it's like you can't, you're right. So there's other music, like all music is a soundtrack to your life, and for me, the music that I've made or collaborated on has all been that as well. So I feel like I would like betray myself if I was like, oh, that stuff sucks. That's not going to happen. It's just, you know what I mean? It'll never suck. It might be something I'm not interested in doing or feeling, but I'll always remember the place where certain things I've made, you know, were that love, like you're talking about, in terms of a song or an album or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we all make music because before we made it, we loved it, right?
I mean, once you lose respect for your own accomplishments, whether you love them now or not, I think you've just lost it, man. You need to go do something else.
Yeah, and you're done. And you should get off the gravy train. Because, I mean, I don't know, music, I mean, but you know, our experience with music is so different than our parents, right? I had this conversation the other day with somebody where he was talking about a 7-year-old who was blasting something out of her bedroom, and he found himself thinking, shut that shit off. And he was having a mom and dad moment, right? That moment where as a parent, you all of a sudden became your parents. And for me, that moment was when I started blaring Iron Maiden.
Metallica.
And Metallica.
Yeah.
And Megadeth.
Yeah.
And Testament.
Right.
And Sepultura. And all this shit. And then when I was happy and my girlfriend made me happy, it was Bon Jovi and Poison. Like, I can fucking dial it into exactly how it was. And then Prince was how I figured out I could be this awkward-looking little Spanish kid. That maybe I could be good in bed. Maybe that was my motherfucking angle. You know what I mean? I could play the guitar. Like, you know, I just wonder, how do you get that from Steve Aoki? How do you get that from Diplo? Even like Skrillex, like, and I look at my kid, I'm like, how are you going to get that? Well, he's going to get it from me, I know that, but like, how does the rest of the world, how do the kids coming in to this planet, right? How do they get that? How do they get that? The first time Jimmy fucking Page played that guitar solo, or the first time you saw Van Halen and was tapping on it, or the first time you saw.
Well, I think we all have to at least recognize that music is not important to everybody. It's important to a lot of people, and I do believe that it's got therapeutic uses, all kinds of things, but it is not, in fact, that important to everybody. Right. So there are people that in their youth and maybe stages of, you know, less experience or just not really caring, more just have a good time as part of the phase of, you know, coming into adulthood or whatever. It's a piece of their life, and then they move on. And there are a lot of people who don't listen to whatever, they don't care at all, like throughout their life, really that much about music in general. Like there's a lot of people where they listen to the radio not because it's like background noise, honestly. Like it's not, so least common denominator music that bubbles up through the foam machine is okay for that. You know what I mean? Because it's different. It's not the soundtrack of their life that they love. It's just some shit that's keeps it from being silent.
I agree.
That is the role of music for some people. That's all I'm saying. That is the role of music for some people. I think it's fair to acknowledge that is what some of it is. So, you know.
Music, I think at the end of the day, we can sum it up as it's powerful in a lot of different ways, man. It's for all of us in this discussion, there is absolutely no question about that. But I just thought I'd point out that it is, in fact, a distraction for a certain segment of the population, and that's why that stuff can exist, because they really don't give a shit anyway. So it's okay, right? I mean, people buy white noise machines, Anthony, to go to sleep. So it's like, you know. I'm sure you've experienced this. I know I have, and I know I've had conversations with some pretty big DJs about this. That moment when you walk into a club and you get that booking that you probably should have never booked, and you play and you realize nobody gives a fuck what you're playing or who you even are. I've gone to see some legends in New York at the wrong club and been in the booth with them and looked at them in the face, and they look out at the audience and they're playing their hits, right? They're playing the shit that, like, you fell in love to. And not a single motherfucker in that audience is paying attention.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because one of the few experience I haven't had really one that's been that bad. I've had a few that were questionable. They were different than I thought they were going to be. But I will say, and kind of coming to a close, you know, on our three. This is maybe the longest one ever, Anthony, which is awesome.
Great.
I don't know. I don't know how Kelly's going to deal with the post-show file size, but
I'm going to hate you all tomorrow. Sorry.
Yeah. But what I was going to say was I had a recent experience that was really nice, and I went to there's a small festival here. I don't even know if you call it a festival. It's definitely a party. It's a weekender. Let's call it a weekender.
Let me pause you there.
Yeah.
The reason I got my first major management deal that eventually led to a really nice BMG publishing deal.
Yeah.
Oscar Bociek.
Oh yeah, man. Cool guy.
He is my fucking boy. He is literally, I drove in a band. I had a band in Florida, in Tampa, that would open up for Rabbit in the Moon called the Digital Pimps.
Okay. I think I remember that name.
Yeah. We had a few, records that kind of hit, and then we get this email from this guy named Oscar, music showcase in New York. If you want to get discovered and be a star, come to my thing. Because Oscar, he's like little, but he's like 10 feet tall, right? And I get this email, and submit. So I submit a song, and a week later, you've been accepted. We're showcasing you at CBGB's.
Awesome.
Live rock and roll breakbeat band.
Nice.
We were fucking playing guitars and percussion and all the singers and fire and all this shit. And we go to New York City, and it's not a big building. Yeah. It's not what we thought.
Yeah, CBGB's definitely.
Well, we didn't. Yeah, we knew we were playing it, but first you go to the conference, right? You walk in, and you sign up, and you get your badge. You go to your hotel, and then the next day we're playing CBGB's, and we walk in, and I knew CBGB's as a rock guy, but I didn't realize we were rolling with a techno show and fire, and they're like, you can do 95% of your show here because the ceiling is so low. And so all of a sudden we went from the Digital Pimps to digital. There was no pimp, there was no show, but we went up there, we did our show. And the next morning I wake up, and Oscar, who I hadn't met yet, is like, we roll into the music conference, and the way he had this is fucking genius. He had a big ballroom in the Puckett building in the city, which is where Grace worked, right? That building.
Yeah.
I walk in. He had lined up a table set up like it was a circle. He had MTV, Warner. I mean, it was fucking. But you know, most of them were probably interns.
Yeah.
But they were there as a company, right? So, and the way it worked is you rolled up with your CD, they put on headphones, they listened to you, they criticized you or told you they liked you right to your face, and then you went to the next person next to them. And we roll in, girls in costumes, I'm looking like I think I'm fucking Prince, all this fucking shit, and we're just like, we're not gonna fucking walk around this fucking place. And Oscar, for the first time, walks up and goes, yo, the digital pimps, dude, fuck this shit. Come with me. And he walks us up to Warner Brothers, Atlantic, and all these people, and they didn't get us. They didn't fucking whatever. And then we're like, thank you, Oscar. We appreciate it. We're going to get back in our U-Haul and drive back to Tampa. And as we're walking out, this big, black, fat dude goes, whistles really loud. He's like, what, you're not going to play this song for me? Okay, if you want to hear it. Everybody else fucking didn't know what to say, and they all gave us bullshit. We drove all the way here from Tampa. Fuck this place, but Oscar's cool. And I played for this guy, and we signed a fucking management deal, which would make me 6 figures in over 10 years. And become this thing, right? And then me and Oscar became friends. He had New York. He was doing...
Yeah, he's a cool
I moved to San Diego. I'm starting this thing called A Weekender.
Yeah.
And then I see your ass on the fucking roster. And I'm like...
That was the first time I heard that.
This is why I do what I do, and this is why I appreciate the people I meet along the way. Because 15 years later, the guy that pretty much put things in motion for me professionally in New York is coming full circle and doing things that are now happening with Wes and happening with all these other people.
That's interesting.
But that's the beauty of, and this is how I'll wrap things up. This is why I still keep doing it, because I didn't know this girl from fucking Apple not too long ago, and now here she is, and and here we are, and like we're friends, and we're doing all these things, but dude, I've said Agent 137 to people, and they're like, yo, holy shit, I know for a fact. See, so it's really cool to see this, you and Oscar, and all this, we're still on the same path, right, to make people dance, right, at the end of the day. Whether Beauty the Machine is a band, we're still going to make people dance.
Yeah.
So I guess for the Bass Collective, even when you read our bio, we'll see you on the dance floor. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's just where it all ends up, right? We can talk as long as we want. But if they don't fucking dance, Wes, we didn't do our job.
Well, totally.
Hold on. Do you have a timer?
No. It's just text messages and stuff.
That was perfect timing.
Oh my god, that was awesome.
So it's good timing though, right? It's like ding.
It's almost like we rehearsed it.
Yeah.
Where can you see that?
That's why Kelly's over there to punch you in the side. I'll go back to that Weekender, which that was the first time I kind of heard that word, was definitely the West Coast Weekender. So there's another crew here. They do a smaller one, but they do it over in a place called Desert Hot Springs, I think it is. And they do it at a resort there. And it's like 3 days. And a resort in Desert Hot Springs is like a stretch because it's not like a Vegas resort. It's nice, but it's, it's moderated. Like, it's cool. It's for people that don't go to Vegas, right? Nice place. And real great staff over there and everything. So anyway, Native Alien, they do this thing called Contact, and it's an annual weekender that they do. And it was July 4th weekend. So I went to it just as a fan of music. It's primarily house and tech house, techno vibe. That's kind of, the way they present it. And you can just tell from the lineups and stuff too. A lot of great, DJs from San Diego and SoCal area. And it's 3 days, like I said, and it's night and day. Pool party, and then that closes down, they go into nightclub. So it's really cool. So I went for the first time, and I went there, and I was going to make this comment of, like, back to your point about this people showing up and playing a party where the audience, there's no connection or whatever. And so I was actually there for 2 days, and I wasn't playing. It was a 3-day thing, and I was there for 2 days. And then they have I didn't know this, but they have apparently it's part of, this was their 7th one. So apparently it's part of their thing where on Sunday night, because it's 4th of July weekend, there's holidays and stuff. So on Sunday night, apparently they do this to be announced, guest type thing. So they asked me if I would do it, and I was like, yeah, cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. And it's kind of funny because I know they're really not into like the majority of my music catalog or probably aware of it. A lot of breakbeat, a lot of that kind of stuff. But they know, because they're part of San Diego music scene, obviously. Anyway, so I said, yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, and I've definitely been soaking up the vibe here for a few days, and I'll do something cool that'll be something I feel great about, but I think will also be good for the audience. And it was actually, for me, that was a really neat opportunity because it was actually where I really put my DJ hat on. And it kind of reminded me that because I had a great show. It was great. People didn't know I was playing, didn't expect it. There were people there that knew me that said, why are you here? You're not in the lineup, this kind of stuff. And I was like, dude, I'm just here as a fan. I literally was until we worked that out. And so then I ended up playing, 3 days into it. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. A lot of people said they had a lot of fun, a lot of dancing going on. It was a good time. I really appreciated it from Sonia and Tom, who are Native Alien. And what I was going to say, though, is that for me, like, I really put my DJ hat on. And for me, it goes back to what you said about our job is to make people dance as the DJ part, right? As a producer, I think your job, an artist producer, I think your job is to do what we've been saying for 3 hours in bits and pieces, make stuff that you like and you're proud of. That's your producer artist job. When you're a DJ, your job is to make people dance. And so I played a very different set. I was very happy with it. I really enjoyed the music. The tie back to you, Anthony, is that one of the influences that I used that I felt like was a crossover between this house, tech house, and breakbeat thing was your OK and F homies from Brooklyn, right? I liked a lot of what they did. To me, it's a more upbeat, bit funkier version of a lot of Dirty Bird stuff and night-based stuff, kind of in the realm, but it swings more towards a little bit of the upbeat or energetic side. And so anyway, not just their stuff, but I use a few of their tracks. I use some other stuff, these kinds of things. And I had a great time, man. So I just think that can go to more the DJ side of things, where I think there's a lot of folks out there that are artist producers that end up playing gigs that don't have much DJ experience, my man. And I don't have a problem with that because it's an opportunity and they'll learn, or they won't learn and they'll die off. But I certainly am happy, at least for myself, that I've got both those skills, because like I know when I can go and there's a crowd that is expecting me to be there and play, and I know what they it's more about my artist side that they're kind of expecting to hear. And then I kind of know when I can turn on that DJ side and play stuff I like, but that I also know is going to fit a crowd that doesn't know a lot about me, and we're going to have a great time. And we did. So that was my 2 cents on that topic. In both cases, you gotta know your role, man. You gotta know your role, right, brother?
Stay in your lane.
You gotta know your role, dude. But it's bullshit when somebody else has complete control over what your role is. That blows.
Oh, and I agree, because I've been there in the past. But I think we should probably wrap it up because we've done 3 hours.
Yeah,
keep hope. In the tribute to Crystal Mountain, keep hope alive, baby. Keep hope alive.
You still gotta go study or like do a mix or that.
I gotta do a mix, but I turn into a pumpkin. I don't want to go on the subway after midnight.
And I don't want you to. Kelly, it's 3 solid hours because we started 20 minutes late. I think this is the longest one ever. Anthony, NYC Bass Collective, Ashlyn, in your absence.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good times. Good fun. Kelly doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, she's
Bye.
over it. So I wanted to just say this, Wes. Thank you, by the way, Kelly, for putting this together. Wes, obviously, much respect. I think this is the first time I've spent 3 hours talking about music with people.
And it was fun, dude.
And it was fun, so thanks for that. Hopefully people will watch this and get something out of it. And I don't know, dude. I look forward to sharing the stage with you again. That shit was fun.
We talked, Kelly and I, we had a refresh on the whole variety show thing today and the reason for it. And it's like, it's with people we like. So, like you, peace out.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.